Department of the Air Force Instruction 10-2501, Emergency Management Program, dated 10 March 2020, including updates as of 6 June 2023. Chapter 1, Overview and Background. Paragraph 1.1. Purpose. A comprehensive all-hazards Air Force emergency management program enables the Air Force to maintain readiness and sustain mission assurance. The purpose of this instruction is to establish the Air Force Incident Management System, AFIMS, in accordance with the National Incident Management System, NIMS methodology, and align the Air Force Emergency Management Program with the National Response Framework. It establishes Air Force emergency management responsibilities, procedures, and standards to physical threats resulting from major accidents, natural disasters, conventional attacks, terrorist attacks, and chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear, seaborne attacks or incidents. It provides a framework for planning and preparedness across the 5 NIMS mission areas: prevention, protection, response, recovery, and mitigation, and includes domestic and foreign guidance. It provides a framework for ability to survive and operate, ATSO, training and exercising. Paragraph 1.2. Mission. Air Force Presidential Directive 10-25 establishes the primary and ancillary missions for the Air Force Emergency Management Program, as well as ATSO policy. Air Force Emergency Management provides support to CWMD operations as defined in Air Force Presidential Directive 10-26, Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Enterprise. The Air Force Emergency Management Program is one of the mission assurance-related programs that ensure the continued function and resilience of capabilities and assets supporting the critical DoD as well as service-level strategic missions. Air Force organizations will use AFMAN 10-2502, Air Force Incident Management Systems, AFIMS standards and procedures, to conduct incident management activities during the prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery phases. Paragraph 1.3. Air Force Emergency Management Program Administration. The Air Force Emergency Management Program aligns with DoD Instruction 6055.17 for all hazards incident management of emergencies. Approved Tier 3 waivers to this publication for all total force wings and units must be sent to the Air Force Civil Engineer Center, AFCEC, Emergency Management Branch, AFCEC/CXR workflow, within 30 days of approval by Commander, Director, or civilian equivalent. AFCEC/CXR will route to the AFIMSC Emergency Services Branch, AFIMSC/IZPE, Air Force Reserve Command Deputy Chief of Staff Logistics, Engineering and Force Protection, AFRCA4, National Guard Bureau Deputy of Chief Staff Logistics, Engineering and Force Protection, NGBA4, and Headquarters Air Force, HAF, Civil Engineer Directorate Readiness Division, AF/A4CX, approved Tier 3 packages for process improvement considerations. When seeking a Tier 0, Tier 1, or Tier 2 waiver to this instruction, AFCEC/CXR will forward the waiver packages as follows in accordance with AFMAN 33-360. For Tier 0 and Tier 1 waiver requests, send to AF/A4CX. For Tier 2 waiver requests, send to AFIMSC/IZPE and AFRC/A4 and NGB/A4. AF/A4CX is responsible for vetting and routing Tier 0 and Tier 1 waiver packages. See AFMAN 33-360 for waiver package requirements. Trained Military Air Force Specialty Code, AFSC 3E9XX, Emergency Management Specialists and/or Civilian Emergency Managers will be employed to manage the Air Force Emergency Management Program for commanders at all levels. Paragraph 1.4. Emergency Management Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures. Air Force commanders and civilian equivalents at all levels will incorporate the emergency management concepts, Air Force and multi-service found in the Air Force Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures AFTTP listed below into appropriate home station and expeditionary programs, planning, operations, and exercises at installation. Narrator's note. For these AFTTP, the Air Force Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures publications, please reference the physical document, as they will not be narrated here. Thank you. Chapter 2. Roles and Responsibilities. Paragraph 2.1. Deputy Chief of Staff for Manpower, Personnel, and Services. AF/A1. The AF/A1 will provide strategy, guidance, and oversight to MAJCOMs, Air Force Personnel Center, and installation force support units and activities for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. AF/A1 will provide subject matter expertise concerning mass care, housing and human services, sheltering, emergency assistance, search and recovery support, mortuary support, and housing assistance for evacuees or incident displaced personnel. AF/A1 will ensure the recovery, handling, and storage of human remains, to include remains contaminated by seaborne materials. AF/A1 will ensure peacetime and wartime installation shelter stocking activities. AF/A1 will ensure use of media outreach to ensure personnel accountability and family member support actions. AF/A1 will ensure integration and use of the Air Force Personnel Accountability and Assessment System as a component of the AFINS. AF/A1 will provide guidance and oversight to the AFIMSC in their role as the technical and specialized reachback capability for installation level requests regarding sheltering, emergency housing, and search recovery. Paragraph 2.2. Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance and Cyber Effects Operations, AF/A2/6. The AF/A2/6 will advise Secretary of the Air Force, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and other Air Force leadership on foreign threats to installations and availability of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to support the installation's ATSO and recover from a conventional and seaborne attack or incident. Paragraph 2.3. Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, AF/A3. The AF/A3 will provide strategy, guidance, and oversight for aircrew flight equipment, operational reporting, weather, and defense support to civil authorities for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD 3025.18, Defense Support to Civil Authorities, DoD Instruction 6055.17, and this instruction. Air Force A3 will provide current and future year sustainment funding requirements for aircrew flight equipment to AFCEC/CXR by October annually. AFA3 will provide command program and planning support of the Emergency Mass Notification System requirement throughout the Air Force in accordance with AFMAN 10-206, Operational Reporting, OPREP. AFA3 will oversee Air Force-wide training, organizing, and equipping of weather organizations responsible for providing weather support to emergency management-related operations. The Air Force Weather Directorate, AFA3W, also cross-feeds severe weather forecasting lessons learned, which affects the installation ATSO and recovery from an incident or deliberate attack. AFA3 will establish and sustain the Air Force Liaison for defense support to civil authorities. Paragraph 2.4. Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection, AFA4. The AFA4 will manage strategy, guidance, and oversight for the Air Force Emergency Management Program pursuant to DoD Instruction 6055.17, in accordance with authorities delegated to AFA4 as set out in HAF Mission Directive 1-38, Deputy Chief of Staff, Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection. The AFA4 will provide guidance, resource advocacy, and oversight to the Air Force Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection portfolio. 2. Develop and implement the Air Force Emergency Management Program. Develop and implement nuclear accident and incident response capabilities pursuant to DoD-M 3150.08. Develop and implement procedures for funding, certifying, and reporting on U.S. nuclear weapon incident response task force capabilities pursuant to DoD Instruction 3150.10. The AFA4 through directors and subordinate directors will ensure that all units and airmen are organized, trained, and equipped as needed to ensure compliance with requirements of the Air Force Emergency Management Program. Paragraph 2.5. The Director of Civil Engineering, AFA4C. The AFA4C, under the authority, direction, and control of the AFA4, will serve as the OPR for development and implementation of the Air Force Emergency Management Program. The AFA4C will provide strategy, guidance, and oversight for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The AFA4C will serve as the OPR for the development and maintenance of this instruction. AFMAN 10-2502 and AFMAN 10-2503. Operations in a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear CBRN environment. The AFA4C will provide strategy, guidance, and oversight to the Air Force. 4. Organization and strategic direction for the Air Force Emergency Management Program. Development of the Air Force Emergency Management Education, formal training, and ancillary training program requirements. Development and sustainment of current and future Air Force emergency management technologies, capabilities, and equipment. Use of Program Element Codes, PEC, for weapons of mass destruction, WMD, CBRN defense, and contingency operations respective to the total force component. The full list of PECs outlined by the DoD for the Air Force can be found on the Air Force Financial Management Data Quality Service website. Total Force PEC 2802 8F-Contingency Operations. Regular Air Force PEC 27593 F-Seaburn Defense, PEC 27574 F Weapons of Mass Destruction, WMD Threat Response. Air National Guard, PEC 55165 F-NBC Defense, PEC 55167 F-Domestic Preparedness Against WMD, AMG. Air Force Reserve Command, PEC 55175 F-Seaburn Defense. The AF-A4C will serve as the Air Force lead for service component support to DoD during the development of DoD directives, instructions, and/or manuals and joint publications that are primarily focused on the Air Force Emergency Management Program, equities, and issues. The AF-A4C will represent the Air Force in joint, DoD, and external emergency management governance activities. The AF-A4C will serve as the Air Force representative to the DoD Chemical and Biological Defense Program, as delegated by Air Force 10 and Air Force Presidential Directive 10-26. Advocate for Air Force modernization requirements via established joint processes for prioritization, development, acquisition, and sustainment of chemical, biological, and related defense capabilities. The AF-A4C will ensure changes to DoD Instruction 6055.17, appropriate national planning frameworks, and other applicable federal and DoD guidance are incorporated into Air Force Emergency Management Program strategy and guidance. The AF-A4C will ensure current and accurate emergency management mission tasks, METS, are listed in the Defense Readiness Reporting System. Paragraph 2.6, Director of Security Forces, AF-A4S. The AF-A4S will provide guidance to MAJCOM and installation security forces, units, or activities for force protection, integrated defense, and anti-terrorism initiatives to support the Air Force Emergency Management Program. Paragraph 2.7, Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategy, Integration, and Requirements, AF-A5. The AF-A5 will incorporate Air Force Emergency Management Program capabilities, equities, doctrine, guidance, and instructions into future Air Force operational strategies, concepts, and requirements as appropriate. Paragraph 2.8, Deputy Chief of Staff for Plans and Programs, Air Force A8. The Air Force A8 will incorporate Air Force Emergency Management Program capabilities, equities, doctrine, guidance, and instructions into Air Force planning and program development activities as appropriate. Paragraph 2.9, Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategic Deterrence and Nuclear Integration, Air Force A10. The Air Force A10 will provide support and oversight for CWMD aspects of the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The AF-A10 will serve as a lead integrator for CWMD operations to ensure Air Force forces maintain the ability to survive and perform needed operations upon threat or use of seaborne weapons. The Air Force A10 will support Air Force A4 participation in the Nuclear Weapon Accident Incident Response Subcommittee and within the DoD Chemical Biological Defense Program. The Air Force A10 will advise HAF staff and combat developers on seaborne defense capability requirements based on operational and technical analysis. Paragraph 2.10. The Air Force Surgeon General. AFSG. The AFSG will provide support, guidance, and oversight for all medical aspects of the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The AFSG will provide Air Force medical services support to the Air Force Emergency Management Program, advise the Air Force Council, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Secretary of the Air Force, and the Joint Staff on medical aspects of the Air Force Emergency Management Program, provide medical expertise to aid in the development of emergency management and seaborne defense, and response policies, guidance, and procedures. The AFSG will administer health surveillance, incidents of public health concern, and total exposure health guidance. The AFSG will conduct sampling, identification, and quantification of health risks and monitor health hazards such as seaborne material, toxic industrial biological, toxic industrial chemical, toxic industrial material, disease vectors, and water and airborne contamination. The AFSG will oversee installation medical response programs, ensure equipment and capability requirements for medical, all hazard, and seaborne defenses are within appropriate allowance standards. The AFSG will provide medical subject matter expertise for aspects of all hazards, seaborne defense, and consequence management projects and acquisitions, monitor medical limiting factors, LIMFAC, and shortfalls of MAGCOM emergency management programs and equipment. The AFSG will direct seaborne training for medical personnel, example is responders and providers, to enhance survivability and mission effectiveness in a seaborne contested environment. The AFSG will ensure health-focused emergency management exercises are coordinated with the Air Force Inspector General to meet DoD Instruction 6055.17 requirements. The AFSG will provide subject matter expertise on medical aspects of Air Force emergency management to the HAF staff, other service components, Joint Staff, Office of the Secretary of Defense, OSD, and congressional liaisons. The AFSG will support AF, A4C with advocacy for Air Force medical seaborne modernization priorities through the Air Force Chemical and Biological Defense Program Objective Memorandums process. Review applicable Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System documents, and monitor the Joint Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Defense Program Objective Memorandums submission to ensure it addresses health capability needs. Paragraph 2.11. Air Force Inspector General. The Air Force Inspector General, through the Air Force Inspection Agency, will provide guidance and oversight to ensure installation Inspector General offices and wing inspection team design, develop, and execute Air Force Emergency Management Program for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The Air Force Inspector General will provide guidance and oversight to ensure installation Inspector General offices and wing inspection teams design, develop, and execute Air Force Emergency Management Program exercises and evaluations in accordance with the Air Force Readiness Exercise Advanced Planning, Execution, and Reporting Program and the principles of the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program, HSEEP. The Air Force Inspector General will integrate Air Force Emergency Management Program exercises and evaluations guidance contained in Attachment 3 of this document into the Air Force Inspection Program and Wing Inspection Team training products. The Air Force Inspector General will review the master scenario event lists developed for Air Force-wide use, see AFI 90-201, the Air Force Inspection System. Validate exercises are realistic, follow timelines for executing operational and/or contingency scenarios, and contain plausible events, and are aligned with standardized Air Force Emergency Management Program desired learning objectives, resources listed in Attachment 3 of this document. The Air Force Inspector General will maintain a digital repository containing Air Force Emergency Management Program exercise and evaluation templates for Air Force-wide use. Paragraph 2.12. Air Force Career Field Managers. Air Force Career Field Managers will identify career field education and training plan wartime tasks to be performed and task certified while wearing CBRN Individual Protective Equipment, IPE, for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The Emergency Management Career Field Manager will integrate Air Force emergency management operational concepts into Air Force and MAJCOM functional area programs and career field related publications. Air Force Career Field Managers will integrate wartime tasks and associated task certifications for surviving and operating in CBRN environments into career field reoccurring training, certifications, job guides, and formal schools in accordance with career field education and training plans. Paragraph 2.13. Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center, AFIMSC. The AFIMSC will provide execution, training, and resources for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. AFIMSC IZPE will provide support for Air Force Emergency Management Program execution across the Air Force, to include reachback support for Air Force Emergency Management and non-medical CBRN defense program requirements and capabilities. The AFIMSC IZPE and AFIMSC XZ will manage execution of PECs 27593F, CBRN Defense, 27574F, WMD Threat Response, and 28028F, Contingency Operations. Develop execution year funding strategies and support program objective memorandums development through coordination with HAF, MAJCOMs, Field Comms, Direct Reporting Units, and installations. AFIMSC IZPE will monitor Air Force Emergency Management Program health indicators and Air Force-wide trend analysis and assist installations, MAJCOMs, Field Comms, and others with corrective actions when needed. AFIMSC XZ will evaluate defense readiness reporting system shortfalls and LIMFACs to validate requirements, advocate for, and assist MAJCOMs, Field Comms, and installations to resolve emergency management and non-medical CBRN defense deficiencies. AFIMSC IZPE, in conjunction with the MAJCOM IGs, will track training trends to inform the evolution of policy, doctrine, guidance, and instructions. AFIMSC IZPE will support A4C with advocacy for initiatives to improve readiness, cost-effectively modernize, and drive innovation throughout the Air Force emergency management and non-medical CBRN defense programs. IFIMC IZPE will work with Air Education and Training Command and others as needed to develop, implement, and sustain effective Air Force emergency management education, formal training, and ancillary training requirements. AFIMSC IZPE will provide Air Force Emergency Management Program subject matter experts and integrate cross-functional program solutions Air Force-wide. Air Force IFMC IZPE will provide Air Force emergency management and non-medical seaborne defense and seaborne response expertise in support of policies, procedures, concept of operations, equipment, and training program development. AFIMSC IZPE will provide Air Force emergency management and non-medical seaborne defense expertise and recommendations for Air Force and equipment posturing to MAJCOMs, field comms to meet specific Air Force emergency management program objectives and MAJCOM requirements for threat-designated areas. AFIMSC IZPE will develop and execute Air Force Emergency Management Program studies and analysis. AFIMSC XZ will provide augmentee support to MAJCOM Inspector Generals for Air Force Emergency Management Program exercises and inspections. AFIMSC IZ will provide installation, geospatial information, and services where needed to meet Air Force emergency management and seaborne defense program requirements. AFIMSC IZPE will support MAJCOMs and field comms as needed with preparation for, response to, and recovery from natural disasters, hazardous material incidents, weapons of mass destruction attacks, and other contingencies. AFIMSC IZPE will ensure initial response forces are organized, trained, equipped, and resourced to perform installation duties required to respond to a nuclear weapon incident according to DoD Instruction 3150.10 and DoD M 3150.08. AFIMSC IZPE will perform capability-based assessments, requirements, development following Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System process, and coordinate with Air Force Material Command and respective Air Force Material Command centers on development of science and technology, research development test and evaluation, material acquisition, and Air Force contract augmentation program supporting the Air Force Emergency Management Program. AFIMSC IZPE will coordinate and integrate Air Force emergency management and seaborne defense capabilities across the AFIMSC portfolio and with other cross-functional programs, example being force protection and medical services. Paragraph 2.14. Field Operating Agencies and Direct Reporting Units. The Field Operating Agencies and Direct Reporting Units will provide support for the Air Force Emergency Management Program in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The Field Operating Agencies and Direct Reporting Units will ensure plans address Air Force, MAJCOM, FieldCom, and host nation emergency management and seaborne defense to include protective actions appropriate for identified threats. The Field Operating Agencies and Direct Reporting Units will ensure support and mutual aid agreements, MAA, meet local, state, federal, and status of forces agreement requirements. The Field Operating Agencies and Direct Reporting Units will participate in Air Force Emergency Management Program training and exercises conducted by host installations. Paragraph 2.15. Air Force Network Integration Center Director. The Air Force Network Integration Center Director will coordinate with AF-A4C, the Air Force Operations Group, AF-A3OG, and Chief Information Dominance and Chief Information Officer, SAF-CIO A6, to ensure emergency response automated communication systems are compatible with other agencies' systems. Paragraph 2.16. Air Force Operational Test and Evaluation Center Director. The Air Force Operational Test and Evaluation Center Director will support the Air Force CWMD Modernization Working Group with operational and test result data and reports from acquisition programs with Air Force Emergency Management and CBRN Defense Equities. Paragraph 2.17. Major Commands. MAJCOMs. MAJCOMs will provide oversight and guidance for the Air Force Emergency Management Program within their respective MAJCOM in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. MAJCOMs will be prepared to perform assigned Air Force emergency management missions, including ATSO in permissive, uncertain, and hostile environments, coordinate with other service components, allies, and partners in accordance with applicable DoD functional campaign plans and theater campaign plans containing CWMD lines of effort. MAJCOMs will integrate exercises annually to assess Air Force Forces, ATSO, and CBRN Defense METs in accordance with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Universal Joint Task List, Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Manual 3500.04 F, Universal Joint Task Manual, as well as installation capabilities. ATSO rodeos shall not fulfill the requirement to conduct an annual readiness assessment in accordance with AFI 90-201. MAJCOMs shall, for non-AFIMSC programs and in accordance with the AFIMSC detachments, identify, prioritize, and advocate for emergency management and CBRN defense program requirements. MAJCOMs will oversee execution of Air Force emergency management requirements in host nations in accordance with Status of Forces agreements, Department of State, and combatant commander guidance and applicable host nation standards. Ensure Air Force emergency management programs on installations in host nations have clear guidance regarding Air Force emergency management program capabilities could support foreign consequence management, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief operations. MAJCOMs will assess WMD threats, including CBRN weapons and materials, during joint intelligence preparation of the operating environment process. Coordinate with combatant commands on CBRN threat designation for operational planning and requirements. MAJCOMs will establish CBRN warning and reporting systems capabilities in accordance with DoD Instruction 3020.52, AFMAN 10-206, and AFTTP 3-2.56. Component MAJCOMs and AFIMSC, on behalf of their supported MAJCOMs, will provide emergency management expertise to applicable boards, bureaus, centers, settles, and working groups in support of emergency management and CBRN defense operational planning teams and/or operational planning groups. Provide building partnership capacity and security cooperation programs within assigned areas of responsibility. Provide emergency management and CBRN defense planning support for sourcing efforts to combatant commands and MAJCOM operational and/or contingency plans. Provide emergency management expertise to the respective Air Force staff in support of current and future operations planning events. Provide combatant commands emergency management and CBRN defense support for local or host nation operation in assigned areas of responsibility. MAJCOMs will establish and maintain a nuclear response task force based on combatant commander requirements. Ensure the response task force is organized, trained, and equipped and resourced to respond to incidents involving Air Force-controlled assets. Develop and implement a radiological incident response plan to outline procedures for response task force and its integration with initial response forces. MAJCOMs will develop and manage a common operating picture, COP, that collects and consolidates main operating base, co-located base, and or forward operating base warfighter capability assessment data. MAJCOMs will, at the MAJCOM commander's direction, establish emergency management, CBRN defense, and mission assurance working groups to advise the MAJCOM commander and staff on emergency management and CBRN defense issues. MAJCOMs will validate, prioritize, and advocate for present and future emergency management and CBRN-related installation level requirements to AFIMSC within established Air Force governance processes. MAJCOMs will fund emergency management and CBRN-related MAJCOM unique capabilities, programs, and equipment. Example being Air Force Global Strike Command Response Task Force mission. Additionally, MAJCOMs will provide oversight of MAJCOM unique purchases and inventory. MAJCOMs with a combatant command's directed nuclear response mission shall be responsible for providing specialized training and equipment to civil engineer emergency services supporting Air Force nuclear operations. All installations and mission support functions are the responsibility of AFIMSC. Duplication of capabilities should be avoided. Paragraph 2.18. Installation Commander. The Installation Commander will administer the Installation Emergency Management Program in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17 and AFTTP 3-2.83 and this instruction. The Installation Commander will develop and maintain a comprehensive, integrated, all hazards Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. Ensure the plan is reviewed by the Installation Emergency Manager annually and updated as needed in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The Installation Commander will ensure the Installation Emergency Manager uses the Air Force Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 planning tool provided by AFCEC-CXR to develop the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. For access to the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 planning tool, contact the AFCEC-CXR. The Installation Commander will coordinate the Installation Emergency Management Program capabilities with other federal departments and agencies, state, tribal, and local governments, other service components, or host nation emergency response agencies and departments. This coordination will identify and update points of contact, emergency protocols, and tactics, techniques, and procedures in the event of an all hazards incident in accordance with DoD IO-2000.16 V1 _ AFI 10-245-0, Anti-Terrorism AT Program Implementation, and DoD I 6055.06, DoD Instruction 6200.03, Public Health Emergency Management, FEM within the Department of Defense, and DoD Instruction 6055.17. The Installation Commander will ensure tenant units, to include commercial businesses, participate in the Installation Emergency Management Program, and that tenant units and commercial businesses develop Emergency Action Plans, EAPs, in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17 and 29 Code Federal Regulations 1910.38, Emergency Action Plans. The Installation Commander will coordinate defense support to civil authorities operations in accordance with Air Force Instruction 10-801, Defense Support to Civil Authorities. When such conditions exist and time does not permit prior approval from higher headquarters, the Installation Commander and responsible officials of other DoD components can respond to civil authorities' requests. The installation commander must accomplish follow-on reporting through the appropriate command chain as soon as possible after the event to ensure compliance with Air Force Instruction 10-801. The installation commander will conduct and maintain personal categorization in accordance with Chapter 7 of this instruction and DoD Instruction 6055.17. The installation commander will develop a community profile that includes a comprehensive examination of the community's demographics, infrastructure, requirements, and resources in accordance with Chapter 7. Include the community profile in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. The installation commander will appoint, in writing, the Readiness and Emergency Management R&EM Flight Officer or Emergency Management Superintendent, civilian GS-9 to GS-12, or enlisted AFSC 3E9X1 equivalent, as the Installation Emergency Manager in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The installation commander will appoint in writing a primary and alternate EOC director, EOC manager, crisis action team, CAT director, CAT manager, and installation representative to the local emergency planning committee in accordance with this instruction. The installation commander will establish an Installation Emergency Management Working Group, MWIG, to guide Air Force Emergency Management Program implementation on the installation in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17. The installation commander will appoint the MWIG chairperson. The installation commander will convene a recovery working group prior to beginning the recovery phase. The recovery working group will evaluate, prioritize, and coordinate installation recovery operations in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The installation commander will establish a risk-based shelter management program in accordance with Installation Risk Management Program, IRMP. The installation commander will establish an installation EOC in accordance with Unified Facility Criteria, UFC 4-141-04, and ensure it has standard operating procedures developed for incident management. The installation commander will use the Air Force Readiness Exercise Advanced Planning, Execution, and Reporting Program and the principles of HSEEP Chapter 6 and Table 6.2 of this publication to develop and conduct readiness and Air Force emergency management related exercises and evaluations for their installations. The installation commander will ensure the following exercise requirements. The installation commander will conduct an exercise program and develop multi-year exercise plans, schedules, with annual updates to aid in scheduling and planning efforts in accordance with this instruction and Air Force Instruction 90-201. Ensure a 2-year emergency management program exercise plan schedule is developed and updated annually in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The installation commander will annually exercise the components of the emergency management plan and capabilities listed in Table 6.1 and Table 6.2. ATSO rodeos shall not fulfill the requirements to conduct an annual readiness assessment in accordance with AFI 90-201. The installation commander approves the installation-wide readiness assessment report and must forward the report to the Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center, AFIMS XZ, as well as the representative MATCHCOM, no later than 30 days after the installation-wide annual exercise has ended. The installation commander will exercise and evaluate multi-agency, multidisciplinary, and multi-jurisdictional emergencies based on risk from identified hazards and threats, including incidents with cascading impacts. The installation commander will exercise and evaluate warning and notification system as identified in base plans and the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. At a minimum, mass warning and notification systems must be exercised semi-annually to validate accuracy of personal contact information and efficiency of notification systems in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The Installation Commander will coordinate installation exercises and evaluations containing emergency management, CBRN-related education, training, and exercise competencies with interagency partners and state and local agencies within continental United States, CONUS and component MAJCOMs, host nation, and Department of State within outside the continental United States, OCONUS, in accordance with this instruction. The Installation Commander will ensure DRF members receive the appropriate level of Incident Command System ICS training consistent with the AFIMS, Chapter 3 and Chapter 8 of this instruction. The Installation Commander will, where technically feasible, ensure the installation has the availability of E911 services with recording capability in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. E911 calls directly from landlines on the installation, E911 calls from wireless service providers as the technology matures, accurate physical location data. The Installation Commander will establish CBRN warning and reporting system capabilities in accordance with AFTTP 3-2.56 and AFMAN 10-206 and MAJCOM direction. The Installation Commander will ensure the criticality assessment, all hazards threat assessment, vulnerability assessment, and capability assessments are completed annually during the installation integrated risk management process in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The Installation Commander will develop and maintain a comprehensive all hazards emergency management program in accordance with the AFMAN 10-2502 and DoD Instruction 6055.17 and DoD Instruction 3020.45 Mission Assurance MA construct to maintain readiness and sustain mission assurance. Mission assurance leverages the work of emergency management to assess, risk, manage, and monitor threats and hazards that endanger mission execution. The Installation Commander will ensure installation units use the Chemical Biological Defense Readiness Training Report to assess their ability to perform the missions under chemical or biological conditions in accordance with AFI 10-201, Force Readiness Reporting. The Installation Commander will use the Installation Emergency Management Air Force Common Output Level Standards to measure program health and in-garrison levels of service to assess the installation's emergency management program's risk to force and risk to mission. At joint bases, where the Air Force is not the lead service, follow the supporting components installations, emergency management program guidance, and ensure additional Air Force requirements are assessed in memorandums of agreement. The Installation Commander will provide and support individual and community preparedness across the installation by actively participating in the National Preparedness and Air Force Be Ready campaigns in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. Paragraph 2.19. Unit Commander. The Unit Commander will establish a unit emergency management program as directed by the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 and Chapter 3 of this instruction. The Unit Commander will administer the Unit Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and this instruction. The Unit Commander will identify a primary and alternate Unit Emergency Management representative to manage, coordinate, and serve as the single point of contact for unit requirements in support of the Installation Emergency Management Program. Primary Unit Emergency Management Representative should be a minimum of an E5 or civilian equivalent GS5. Specific Unit Emergency Management Representative responsibilities are as follows. The Unit Emergency Management Representative will receive training according to Chapter 4. The Unit Emergency Management Representative will create and maintain a Unit Emergency Management Continuity folder, either hard copy or electronic, containing, at a minimum, a copy of the unit's quarterly Emergency Management Program report according to the Commander's Inspection Program requirements, the unit's monthly shortfall or LIMFAX report, and a copy of the unit's representative appointment letter. The Unit Emergency Management Representative will ensure dissemination of Emergency Management Program training material throughout the unit to support the installation's Be Ready awareness campaign. The Unit Emergency Management Representative, in coordination with facility managers and local emergency services, develop and maintain emergency action plans for each facility in accordance with Occupational Safety and Health Administration guidelines and DoD Instruction 6055.17. When required by the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2, the unit commander will appoint unit representatives to the CAT, EOC, and/or Unit Control Centers, UCC. Only fully trained unit representatives will be used to fill DRF positions. Unit representatives not fully trained can participate in installation emergency management exercises under the supervision of a fully trained equivalent unit representative. The unit commander will categorize unit personnel in accordance with Chapter 7 of this instruction. The unit commander will receive an emergency management program brief on emergency management policies, local DRF structure, and commander's emergency management responsibilities within 180 days of assumption of command. The unit commander will, if determined necessary by the MWIG, develop unit standard operating procedures, checklists, and EAPs to meet the AFIMS requirements listed for the unit in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. The unit commander will ensure members assigned to the DRF are organized consistent with Chapter 3 and trained consistent with Chapter 4 of this instruction. The unit commander will implement a shelter-in-place program, including all current and anticipated occupied unit facilities. The unit commander will ensure personnel who are assigned mobility positions or assigned to Deployable Unit Type Code, UTC, can perform wartime METs in a burn, highly contested, degraded environments. The unit commander will establish a monthly ATSO training program to ensure airmen assigned to a UTC can perform mission essential tasks, UTC mission capability tasks, and wartime and combat skills in a highly contested, degraded environment. The unit commander will provide direct support to the Installation Emergency Working Group and be prepared to provide a Unit Emergency Management Program review update to the MWIG. At a minimum, the following items will be included in the Unit Emergency Management Program Review Update. Status of monthly ATSO rodeo training for all unit personnel, Primary Office of Contact POC, Unit Training Manager. MET training, referred to Attachment 3. UTC training, referred to Attachment 3. Weapon skills, referred to Attachment 3. Combat skills training, referred to Attachment 3. Unit desired learning objectives, schedule required for squadron and installation emergency management exercises and evaluations. POC, Unit Wing Inspection Team. Authorized or assigned personnel appointed to DRF positions. POC, Unit Deployment Manager. Response Member Training. Unit Emergency Management Program Standard Operating Procedures Checklist and/or EAP Status. POC, Unit Emergency Management Representative. Current and future fiscal year Unit Emergency Management Program and Squadron's ATSO Readiness, Funding Requirements, POC, Unit Resource Advisor, critical shortfalls and/or LIMFACs for the Unit Emergency Management Program and Squadron's ATSO, POC, Unit's Unit Deployment Manager, Emergency Management, Resource, and Wings Inspection Team representatives. Identify unit requirements, budget, obtain, store, and maintain unit emergency response equipment in accordance with paragraph 9.3. Unit equipment does not include protective masks and assets maintained by the Logistics Readiness Squadron, LRS, or equivalent, for Wartime Chemical Warfare Defense Ensemble, see BAG, requirements in Table 9.3. Paragraph 2.20. The Installation Emergency Manager. Installation Emergency Management, through the installation R&EM flight, is responsible for the deployment, implementation, execution, and sustainment of the Installation Emergency Management Program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 and AFTTP 3-2.83. The Installation Emergency Manager will develop and maintain the Comprehensive Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 in accordance with the Air Force Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 planning tool located on the R&EM AFCEC SharePoint site. The Installation Emergency Manager will collaborate and coordinate with installation responders, state, local, and tribal governments, other service components, and host nation emergency managers to achieve Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 integration and interoperability. The Installation Emergency Manager will coordinate with the Medical Emergency Manager to ensure that medical resource management activities are coordinated and included in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 as needed. The Medical Emergency Manager is responsible for the development of all medical emergency management plans. The Installation Emergency Manager will manage the Installation Emergency Management Program in accordance with AFTTP 3-2.83 and this instruction. The Installation Emergency Manager will ensure that critical infrastructure risks, threats, hazards, vulnerabilities, consequence, and capability assessments are integrated into the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 using the Integrated Risk Management Process in accordance with Homeland Security Presidential Directive HSPD-7, Critical Infrastructure Identification, Prioritization, and Protection. The Installation Emergency Manager will provide the MWIG statistics and metrics on DRF forces and teams training, certification, and credentialing. The Installation Emergency Manager will serve as the program coordinator for the Installation Emergency Management Working Group. The Installation Emergency Manager will convene the Installation MWIG quarterly or as needed to develop meeting minutes and track the progress of MWIG actions. The Installation Emergency Manager will provide emergency management expertise to the Installation Mission Assurance Working Group. The Installation Emergency Manager will establish, equip, and maintain an Installation CBRN Control Center. The CBRN Control Center operates according to the MAJCOM and AFMAN 10-2503. The Installation Emergency Manager will establish community awareness through the National Preparedness and a Continuous Installation Be Ready awareness campaign. Regular Air Force Installation Emergency Managers will use PEC 2757-4F, Weapons of Mass Destruction Threat Response, and PEC 2759-3F, CBRN Defense Program, to plan, program, and budget for emergency management and CBRN defense requirements in accordance with DoD D 7045.17, the planning, programming, budgeting, and execution PPBE process, and AFMAN 65-604, Appropriation Symbols and Budget Codes Fiscal Year 2020, or most recent version of AFMAN for current fiscal year. The Installation Emergency Manager will coordinate with the Unit Emergency Management Representative and Unit Resource Advisors to review Emergency Management Program funding requirements before submission for PEC 2757-4F and PEC 2759-3F. Air Force Reserve Installation Emergency Managers will use PEC 55-16-6F Seaborne Defense Program Reserve to plan, program, and budget for emergency management and seaborne defense requirements in accordance with DOD 7045.14 and AFMAN 65-604. ANG, the Installation Emergency Managers will use PEC 55-16-5F Seaborne Defense Program ANG and PEC 55-16-7F Domestic Preparedness Against WMD ANG to plan, program, and budget for emergency management and seaborne defense requirements in accordance with DOD 7045.14 and AFMAN 65-604. The Installation Emergency Manager should employ resource management activities to coordinate the prioritization and allocation of installation resources in support of incident management operations. Paragraph 2.21. Installation Wing Inspector General. The Installation Wing Inspector General will ensure emergency management, seaborne, and emergency services exercise requirements for emergency management program in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17, AFI 90-201, and this instruction. The Installation Wing Inspector General will ensure emergency management, seaborne, and emergency services exercise requirements listed in A-Force Instruction 90-201. The Installation Wing Inspector General Office will ensure installations required exercises are on the schedule, includes all host and tenant units, local community requirements, and participation in appropriate exercises to maintain full spectrum readiness. The Installation Wing Inspector General will include senior installation emergency management personnel and provide them with the necessary information and/or resources to effectively evaluate emergency management exercises. The Installation Wing Inspector General will ensure the installation emergency management exercises include the development, identification, and testing of specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-sensitive learning objectives as listed under the emergency management exercises in Chapter 6. The Installation Wing Inspector General will ensure installation emergency management exercise and simulations are minimal and approved by the installation commander. When time allows, coordinate installation emergency management exercise simulations through the MWIG. The Installation Wing Inspector General will ensure airmen demonstrate full spectrum readiness competencies and the ATSO in all hazard environments. The Installation Wing Inspector General will ensure memorandum of understandings between host and tenant units and agencies include emergency management exercise planning, participation, and execution requirements. Each group, team, or wing inspection team member will identify shortfalls and LIMFACs, develop course of action, and forward to the wing inspection team leader as well as the appropriate functional area managers within 45 days after the exercise has ended. See Attachment 3, Table Alpha 3.3 for further details on ATSO radio training scenarios. The Installation Inspector General Inspections Office will document emergency management exercises and inspection results in the Inspector General Evaluation Management System in accordance with AFI 90-201. Chapter 3. Program Execution. Paragraph 3.1. Purpose. This chapter discusses the organization of the Air Force Emergency Management Program at all levels of command. The Air Force Emergency Management Program structure establishes a clear progression of coordination and communication from Headquarters Air Force level to MAJCOM and AFIMSC level to the installation. Section 3 Alpha. Headquarters Air Force Emergency Management Program Structure. Paragraph 3.2. Headquarters Air Force Emergency Management Program Structure. At the headquarters level, the emergency management planning and management structure is supported by the Air Force MWIG. The Air Force MWIG guides program implementation across the Air Force and serves as the mechanism to bring issues to and act on issues from the DoD Emergency Management Steering Group. The Air Force MWIG will meet at least quarterly or as needed in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The Air Force MWIG may convene to support other Air Force corporate forums such as the Air Force CWMD Council, the CWMD Integration Group, AF-A3 Mission Assurance Related Program Activities, Mission Assurance Working Group, and the Security Enterprise Steering Group and associated working groups. Table 3.1 shows the recommended members of the Air Force MWIG. This instruction does not restrict Headquarters Air Force from combining the Air Force MWIG with other working groups as long as the combined working group adequately addresses Air Force emergency management issues. The Air Force MWIG will develop emergency management program executive strategy documentation to include an executive policy or vision statement for emergency management and a 2-year strategic plan that defines the mission, goals, objectives, and milestones for the emergency management program in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. Narrator's Note. Below can be seen Table 3.1. Table 3.1, Recommended Air Force Emergency Management Working Group membership, will not be narrated. Paragraph 3.3. Major Command Emergency Management Program Structure. The MAJCOM AGMWIG is the primary working group supporting the Air Force Emergency Management Program through the development of MAJCOM guidance and strategic plans. The MAJCOM MWIG should collaborate with other MAJCOM working groups, example, Threat Working Group, Anti-Terrorism Working Group, etc. This instruction does not restrict MAJCOMs from combining the MAJCOM MWIG with other working groups as long as the combined working group adequately addresses emergency management issues. The MAJCOM MWIG addresses cross-functional issues affecting the emergency management program capabilities within the MAJCOM. Example, natural disasters and human-caused incidents. The MAJCOM civil engineer typically chairs the MAJCOM MWIG with administration provided by the associated AFIMSC detachment. The MAJCOM MWIG meets at least quarterly or as needed in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 to address trends, mission essential skills, UTC skills, wartime skills, and combat skills capability, as well as guidance shortfalls and LIMFACs that require MAJCOM, Air Force Sustainment Center, and or IFIMSC attention for resolution. The MAJCOM MWIG should be comprised of subject matter action officers from the organization shown in Table 3.2. Table 3.2, Recommended Major Command and Air Force Installation and Mission Support Command Emergency Management Working Group membership, table will not be narrated. Response elements at the MAGCOM level include the MAGCOM Command Center, CAT, EOC, and specialized teams to assist installation response efforts and to request additional resources from AFIMSC or Air Force Sustainment Center when needed. MAGCOMs activate their CAT and/or emergency operations staff or cell when directed by the MAGCOM commander or when requested by Headquarters Air Force staff through the MAGCOM commander. Section 3 Bravo. Installation Emergency Management Program Structure. Paragraph 3.4. Installation Emergency Management Program Elements. The Installation Emergency Management Program structure includes the MWIG, R&EM flight, and unit emergency management representatives. The installation commander will appoint the MWIG chair and has the authority to combine the MWIG with other similar working groups, as long as they are in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17 requirements. See Table 3.3 for recommended installation MWIG membership. Narrator's Note. Table 3.3 Recommended Installation Emergency Management Working Group membership shall not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for this table. The installation MWIG will coordinate and consolidate all CBAG authorizations. See Table 9.3, shortfalls, and LIMFACs. Once validated, the chairperson will submit the consolidated requirements to Installation Commander for review, approval, and submission to Air Force Material Command Supply Chain Management Branch, AFMC A4RM. The installation MWIG addresses cross-functional issues affecting the emergency management program. The installation MWIG will meet quarterly or as needed to discuss trends, mission essential UTCs, wartime and combat skills capability, and policy shortfalls or LIMFACs to present to the installation commander. The installation commander or their designated representative will elevate unresolved issues to the MAGCOM MWIG for guidance and resolution. MAGCOMs should work with AFIMSC to resolve issues as required. The Installation Emergency Management Working Group will prioritize and submit funding requests based on IRMP assessment of installation criticality, hazard, vulnerability, capabilities, shortfalls, and LIMFACs through the installation commander to MAGCOM or AFIMSC for resolution. See Table 3.4 for installation MWIG responsibilities. Table 3.4 Responsibilities of the installation MWIG. Item 1. Determine the scope of the Installation Emergency Management Program, utilizing factors such as assigned units, mission, and Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 Roles and Responsibilities, according to the guidelines set out in this instruction. At a minimum, the program scope will include the identity of units supporting the emergency management program, to include tenant organizations and the size of composition of the DRF and required specialized teams. Item 2. Incorporate exercise and inspection trend analysis to identify possible organization, training, and equipment issues for submission to the MAGCOM MWIG. Item 3. Establish a cross-functional installation planning team to incorporate disease containment plan and mission assurance sub-working groups, all hazards, threat assessments into Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 development utilizing the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 tool. Item 4. Incorporate local, state, tribal, federal, and host nation planning committees, councils, or groups. Representatives from civilian agencies may be invited to discuss functional issues. Example, cross-jurisdictional issues, notification processes, interagency response procedures, and MAA at foreign non-domestic locations. The Department of State, Theater Command, and host nation agreements may provide additional requirements for the MWIG. Item 5. Integrate the planning and management functions and other key response agencies under the DRF. Item 6. Prioritize and submit funding requests based on IRMP assessment of installation criticality, hazard, vulnerability, capabilities, shortfalls, and LIMFACs through the installation commander to MAGCOMs and AFIMSC for resolution. This concludes Table 3.4, Responsibilities of the Installation MWIG. The Installation Emergency Manager ensures overall execution of the Emergency Management Program. Installation Emergency Managers should be Air Force Certified Emergency Manager or Air Force Certified Associate Emergency Manager certified. The Installation Emergency Manager and appropriate unit stakeholders will gather data to address the status of installation emergency management response equipment at the MWIG meeting in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The Installation Emergency Manager will review the consolidated list of unfunded emergency management response equipment requirements and present this list to the MWIG. The Unit Emergency Management Representative will manage the Unit Emergency Management Program according to the direction of the unit commander and ensure distribution of emergency management related information. The R and EM flight maintains contact with the Unit Emergency Management Representative and emphasizes the responsibility to meet emergency management program requirements. Additional medical emergency management program equities to include roles and responsibilities are detailed in AFI 10-2519, Public Health Emergencies and Incidents of Public Health Concern, and AFI 41-106, Medical Readiness Program Management, and should be overseen by the Medical Emergency Management Representative for the installation. Chapter 4. Planning, Education, Training, and Operational Coordination. Paragraph 4.1. Introduction. This chapter provides details on emergency management program planning efforts, education and training, and operational coordination. The 5 mission areas under the National Incident Management System are prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. Cutting across these 5 mission areas are 3 overall preparedness capabilities: planning, public information and warning, and operational coordination. Paragraph 4.2. Air Force Emergency Management Program Planning. Emergency managers will develop and maintain a comprehensive all hazards installation emergency management plan 10-2 that addresses the 5 mission areas of the National Incident Management System and the 3 capabilities as outlined in DoD Instruction 6055.17, as well as the FEMA National Response Framework and FEMA National Disaster Recovery Framework. To the extent possible, installations outside the U.S. should also implement National Incident Management System principles in their emergency management plans. The Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2s should be flexible enough for use in all emergencies, including unforeseen incidents, yet detailed enough to provide an initial course of action for the installation commander to proceed with pre-planned responses. The Installation Emergency Manager will ensure the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 clearly articulates the mission and establish requirements and optional concepts for all phases of emergency management across all threats. The plan must be coordinated with other protection-related plans to include but not limited to ATSO, seaborne defense, seaborne response, anti-terrorism, physical security, fire and emergency services, medical, continuity of operations, mass care, sheltering, and environmental. The Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 shall be reviewed annually, updated as needed, and incorporate lessons learned and opportunities for improvement as identified in exercises, actual incidents, and risk management activities. At a minimum, the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 must conform to the Emergency Management Plan requirements and other guidance as outlined in DoD Instruction 6055.17. Paragraph 4.3. Integrated Risk Management Program and Threat Assessments. The Installation MWIG will use the IRMP in accordance with AFI 90-802, Risk Management, and evaluate 4 assessment areas: criticality, hazard, vulnerability, and capability. This is the foundation for emergency management planning and resource decisions to enhance emergency preparedness, contingency response, and mission continuation. Criticality assessments must be accomplished and revised annually to identify and prioritize critical assets and infrastructure that support DoD missions, units, or activities in accordance with HSPD-7 and DoD Instruction 6055.17 and DoD Instruction 3020.52. Critical assets can be people, physical assets, or information. All hazards threat assessments will be used to identify a comprehensive list of threats, hazards, and identify their probability of occurrence in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. The assessment should also include strategic threats to critical missions on the installation, e.g., high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, remote cyber attacks, nuclear attacks, natural events, human-caused events, accidental and intentional, technological-caused events, or etc. A recommended list of DoD emergency management hazards and threat identifications is available in Section 8, Table 3 of DoD Instruction 6055.17. Vulnerability assessments will be used to identify vulnerabilities, align specific threats and hazards, and determine the degree of susceptibility to threats or hazards. Example being comprehensive anti-terrorism and force protection analysis, in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17. The vulnerability assessment process involves identifying the characteristics of an asset that could cause it to suffer degradation or loss, incapacity to perform its designated function, as a result of having been subjected to one or more threats or hazards. Capability assessments will be used to determine courses of action for risk reductions for the installation by comparing requirements to availability and capacity in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. Annual capability assessment will produce a consolidated list of resources associated with emergency response operations to include, but not limited to, protective gear, seaborne detection equipment, fire and emergency services equipment, security forces squadron equipment, and medical response assets in response with DoD Instruction 6055.17. Installations perform these 4 assessments annually to identify opportunities to mitigate risks before events, tailor and refine the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2, and to ensure the disaster response force is capable of executing their roles in compliance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17. Paragraph 4.4. Installation Emergency Management Plan. The Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 is an all-hazards plan designed to support pre-incident preparedness, mitigation efforts, emergency response, and recovery. The installation commander will be the approval authority for the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. Planners will use the IRMP to focus the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 properly and balance survivability and mission effectiveness before, during, and after an attack in accordance with this instruction. The Installation Emergency Manager will use the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 planning tool located on the R&EM AFCEC SharePoint site to develop the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. For austere locations with low bandwidth download, the tool will work offline, coordinate, and then upload. At a minimum, emergency management plans will address the following in accordance with DoD Instruction 6055.17. Mission goals and objectives of the installation's emergency management program. Functional roles, responsibilities, and lines of authority for all personnel, airmen, civilians, contractors, and family members, organizations, and agencies assigned to emergency management responsibilities. A community profile, in accordance with Chapter 7, that includes a comprehensive examination of the community's demographics, infrastructure, requirements, and resources. Mitigation planning, that establishes interim and long-term actions to reduce or eliminate the risks of identified hazards and threats. Mitigation activities include risk management, training, exercise and evaluation, interagency coordination, and equipment. When the threat substantiates it, the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 will include conventional and seaborne attack response actions, identification and prioritization of mission essential assets, identification of shelters, and evacuation procedures. Additionally, unit planners must develop operational checklists and standard operating procedures that align with mission-specific tasks and theater operational threats. Methods for defining, shaping, and sharing situational awareness with local civil and military partners. Methods for providing warning coordination include mass warning and notification, and emergency public information before, during, and after an incident. Continuity of operations planning that identifies mission essential functions and personnel, procedures, and resources in accordance with DoD 3020.26 DoD Continuity Policy. Continuity of operations planning is for when the local incident has exceeded the base's capabilities or renders it inoperable or uninhabitable. Therefore, the Continuity of Operations Plan may be completed as a separate standalone document that is referenced by the Emergency Management Plan. Evacuation management and mass care planning that address the mass care concept, family assistance, local and remote safe havens, use of civilian shelters, personnel accountability, mass feeding, bulk distribution, individuals with special medical needs or disabilities, service animals, and general animal needs management. Shelter in place and lockdown or active shooter planning procedures and exercises. Emergency Family Assistance Center mass care services that establish procedures to integrate victim and family services during the response to and recovery from an emergency. DoD Instruction 1342.22, Military Family Readiness, establishes policy for the development and maintenance of emergency family assistance plans. Crisis and mass casualty response that integrates religious support and all available medical support in response to the full spectrum of crisis or catastrophic events. Appropriate protocols to allow non-DoD first responders, first receivers, and emergency responders to access the installation in an emergency recovery planning that provides short and long-term priorities for restoration of functions, services, resources, facilities, programs, and infrastructure. Communications through all phases of an emergency, addressing communication capability and operation of major communication nodes, including, but not limited to, emergency communication centers, mobile command posts, and incident commands. Support for individuals with disabilities, including validation that all emergency evacuation plans developed, implemented, and exercised support considerations for individuals with disabilities and their service animals as recommended in the U.S. Department of Labor's Employer's Guide to include employees with disabilities in emergency evacuation plans. Disease containment planning and procedures. The AFSG's office have coordinating responsibility, and the installation commander is the primary office of responsibility. The MWIG, or installation commander, must ensure the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 provides comprehensive guidance for an emergency response to natural, technical, or man-made physical disasters. See Table 4.1 for Minimum Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 elements. Additional information on Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 development is found in AFTTP 3-2.83. Narrator's Note. Table 4.1 Minimum Installation Emergency Management Plan elements will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 4.1. Paragraph 4.5. Plans Coordination. The Installation Emergency Manager will coordinate plans, where appropriate, with other federal departments and agencies, state, tribal, and local governments, other DoD components, or host nation emergency response agencies and departments to identify and update responsible points of contact, emergency protocols, and expectations in the event of an incident on or affecting a DoD installation in accordance with the DoD IO-2000.16 V1 _ AFI 10-245-0 and DoD Instruction 6055.06 and DoD Instruction 6200.03. Interagency coordination should include information sharing, resource management, communications, incident management, and capabilities that may provide early warning of a potential hazard or threat. Paragraph 4.6. Support agreements and support contracts. The installation commander will establish support agreements to fill a capability shortfall for the installation, or for the installation to support local authorities, all tenant units, and geographically separated units in accordance with DoD Instruction 4000.19 and AFI 25-201, intra-service, interagency, and interagency support agreements procedures. When needed, utilize support contracts for the procurement of goods, services, or other emergency support. This includes hazmat and CBRN response operations, or the contingency procurement of food and water supplies for mass care shelter or safe havens on Air Force installations at time of activation. Paragraph 4.7. Defense support of civil authorities. The Air Force Emergency Management Program will support defense support of civil authorities' responses outlined in DoD Instruction 3025.24, DoD Public Health and Medical Services in support of civil authorities, and AFI 10-801. All installations located CONUS must coordinate their efforts with the supported geographic combatant commanders and, consistent with the geographic combatant commander guidance, with the appropriate Department of State officials and host nations in accordance with the DoD 5530.3 international agreements. Paragraph 4.8. Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training Methodology. Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training will provide knowledge and skills required to prepare for, mitigate, respond to, and recover from contingencies or emergencies. Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training will be relevant, synchronized, standardized, and integrated across the Air Force to provide combatant commanders with ready airmen. This is demonstrated through realistic exercises and scenarios to demonstrate training effectiveness and enhance student proficiency. Paragraph 4.9. Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training Audience. The required audience for Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training includes personnel specified in paragraph 4.13. Personnel will attend the appropriate courses to meet the level of proficiency required to accomplish their assigned tasks. Figure 4.1 illustrates emergency management tiered training. Narrator's note: Figure 4.1 Emergency Management Tiered Training will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Figure 4.1. AFIMC and installation leadership will ensure service contracts for support personnel include education and training requirements. The required education and training must be equal to the necessary education and training of each individual's military and federal counterparts. Wing inspection team members must be trained to at least the same level of the person being evaluated in accordance with AFI 90-201. Individuals who have completed previous online training courses are not required to re-accomplish the online portion specified in this publication unless otherwise noted. Paragraph 4.10. Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training Instructor Requirements. Unless otherwise specified, only personnel who complete Air Education and Training Command Emergency Management Apprentice course may teach the instructor-led components listed in Chapter 4, Paragraph 4.13. The student-to-instructor ratio will be no more than 30 students to 1 instructor. Paragraph 4.11. Education and Training Scheduling and Documentation Requirements. Installation and Tenant Unit Deployment Managers, Unit Training Managers, or Unit Training Schedulers will use the Automated Readiness Information System Unit Scheduler module to schedule personnel for Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training instructor-led components or courses conducted by the installation R&EM flight. Unit schedulers must maintain a unit personnel roster to include adding and removing personnel upon permanent change of station. Each unit is responsible for tracking, completion, and currency of their personnel. Deployment managers, unit training managers, or unit training scheduler will verify prerequisites are completed prior to scheduling the instructor-led courses. Units must maintain documentation of Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training course completion. Unit emergency management representatives must coordinate their unit's required emergency management reports with their unit deployment managers, unit training managers, or unit training schedulers to ensure they have the most accurate education and training data. Paragraph 4.12. Education and Training Delivery Formats. Air Force Emergency Engagement Education and Training courses are delivered using individual knowledge-based objectives, localized and performance-based objectives. Unless otherwise specified, the individual knowledge-based component of courses is found online via the Advanced Distributed Learning Service. The online knowledge-based course component is an individual effort. R&EM flight personnel will use traditional instructor-led classroom methods to deliver the localized and performance-based component of a course. Presentations include localized mission and threat procedures and hands-on evaluation of a student's ability to perform applicable tasks. Paragraph 4.13. Education and training prescribed courses. Individuals will attend the listed Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training courses to meet the level of proficiency required to accomplish their assigned tasks. Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training courses are summarized in Table 4.2. A detailed listing of all emergency management education and training courses can be found in Attachment 3. Narrator's Note. Table 4.2. Summary of available Air Force Emergency Management Education and Training courses will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 4.2. Paragraph 4.14. Emergency Public Information. Installation emergency management programs will ensure accurate, reliable, and actionable information on threats and hazards is available to airmen, duty personnel, and the public. Installation emergency management programs will include a comprehensive, integrated, and interoperable emergency communication capability with an approved communications plan in accordance with a DoD Instruction 6055.17. Installation emergency management programs will develop written procedures for establishing, maintaining, and executing an emergency public information function. At a minimum, the communication plan will address identified resources, coverage, and vulnerabilities on how publishing emergency public information can be impacted by hazards, dependency on local media resources, and public preparedness campaigns. The installation public information capability must include a central contact facility for the media, pre-scripted information bulletins relevant to the installation's identified hazards, a method to coordinate and clear information for release, the capability of communicating with special needs populations, and protective action guidelines and recommendations. Chapter 5. Disaster Response Force Structure. Paragraph 5.1. Purpose. This chapter outlines the Air Force Emergency Management Program requirements for response and recovery operations to an attack and incident, emergency, disaster, or hostile attack. The National Incident Management System defines a Type 3 incident as those incidents which require response from multiple agencies within a jurisdiction. Generally, Air Force installations should concentrate planning efforts on Type 3 incidents due to the likelihood of these types of incidents occurring and their ability to affect base operations. The MWIG should make the determination to establish a Type 3 incident management team based on the installation's hazard assessment. Paragraph 5.2. Command and Control. C2 is critical to an installation ATSO and allows commanders to synchronize and integrate force activities. C2 ties together all the installation's operational functions, support function, and applies to all levels and echelons of command. C2 enhances the commander's ability to make sound and timely decisions and successfully execute them. Unity of effort over complex operations is made possible through decentralized execution of centralized overarching plans or via mission command. Unity of command is strengthened through adherence to the following C2 tenets: defined authorities, roles, and relationships, mission command, information management, and knowledge sharing, communication, timely decision-making, coordination mechanisms, battle rhythm discipline, responsive, reliable, and interoperable support systems, situational awareness, and mutual trust. Installation C2 structures are designed to conduct and sustain operations while simultaneously responding to events and incidents that impede airspace and cyberspace operations using the following entities. Paragraph 5.3. Installation Disaster Response Force. Figure 5.1 depicts the Air Force structure that responds to disasters or accidents to establish C2 and support disaster operations. The DRF is critical to an installation's ATSO and allows commanders to synchronize and integrate response activities. The DRF ties together the installation operational and support functions as well as applies to all levels and echelons of command. The DRF enhances the commander's ability to make sound and timely decisions and successfully execute response and recovery operations. Figure 5.1. Air Force Disaster Response Force Construct will not be narrated. The DRF structure is designed to conduct and sustain operations while simultaneously responding to events or incidents that impede air, space, and cyberspace operations. Unity of effort over complex operations is made possible through decentralization, execution of centralized overarching plans, or via mission command. Unity of command is strengthened through adherence to the following C2 tenets: defined authorities, roles, and relationships, mission command, information management, and knowledge sharing, communication, timely decision-making, coordination mechanisms, battle rhythm discipline, responsive, reliable, and interoperable support systems, situational awareness, and mutual trust. See Table 5.1 for individual elements of the installation DRF. Narrator's Note, Table 5.1, Elements of the Installation Disaster Response Force will not be narrated. The DRF will execute the preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation tasks outlined in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 in accordance with Chapter 5 of this instruction and AFMAN 10-2502. Paragraph 5.4. Installation Crisis Action Team. The Crisis Action Team is composed of pre-designated individuals, typically group commanders, with representation from tenant wing commanders, as needed. See Table 5.2 for typical membership of the Crisis Action Team. Narrator's Note, Table 5.2, Crisis Action Team members will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 5.2. Paragraph 5.5. Installation Emergency Operations Center. The EOC is the C2 support element that coordinates information and resources to support the installation's actions before, during, and after an incident at the operational level, and is the focal point for the development and coordination of the follow-on operations and recovery plan. The installation commander activates the EOC, which operates separately from the CAT. The EOC harnesses the capabilities of experienced mission support and medical personnel into a cohesive team. The EOCs provide the installation commander a single consolidated communication center to monitor and execute the installation's support missions, whether it is supporting a tenant unit, bed down, sustainment, or redeployment. The EOC includes 15 ESFs and other functional tenant unit representation as needed. See AFMAN 10-2502 for a complete listing and responsibilities of all 15 ESFs. Based on the complexity and size of an event, tailor the EOC to meet the needs of each unique location and mission. As a minimum, the EOC should have representatives appointed from the 11 ESFs shown in Table 5.3. Table 5.3 will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 5.3. Paragraph 5.6. Installation Unit Control Centers. The UCCs will prioritize squadron operational activities, allocate available resources, and implement wartime functions or rapidly deploy forces in response to incidents or events affecting an installation's mission. Units staff their UCCs and EOC-ESFs with functional representatives needed to execute C2 functions. UCCs will have functional plans, checklists, and status boards to accurately account for and track the status of resources, personnel, equipment, and supplies. UCCs will collect damage assessment information, identify work requirements, prioritize recovery actions, manage contamination control, recovery efforts, and provide timely and accurate information to the EOC. Installations should tailor their UCCs to fit the needs of each unique location and mission. See Table 5.4 for UCCs that should be established at all installations. Narrator's Note. Table 5.4. Minimum established unit control centers, regardless of incident, will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 5.4. Paragraph 5.7. Specialized Team. Specialized teams are formed from existing installation airmen to support mission operations. See Table 5.5 for a list of common specialized teams. Table 5.5. Specialized Teams. The CCT is a specially trained team responsible for chemical warfare agent decontamination and to minimize contact hazards and to limit contamination spread to uncontaminated mission-critical areas. The post-attack reconnaissance teams are unit-designated teams used to sweep for and report unexploded ordnance, contamination, and casualties per alarm conditions in a pre-designated area of responsibility. The shelter management team is responsible for shelter operations to include facility inspection, communication, registration, sustainment resources, and medical services. Shelter management teams shall consist of a shelter manager, shelter assistants, shelter financial and logistics, and medical support. This concludes Table 5.5, Specialized Teams. For installations with an existing emergency communications center, it provides emergency communications, alarm, sensor, and video monitoring, incident or event communication support, tactical channel assignments, emergency notification, responder reachback capability, and notification of an emergency to the receiving medical treatment facilities. The Emergency Communication Center is a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week operation and shall include the core functions of fire and emergency services, Base Defense Operations Center, and medical dispatch, where applicable. The initial first responder will formally transfer incident command to the incident commander. For any incident involving 2 or more units, the senior fire officer on the scene will serve as the incident commander. Specialized support and recovery teams are formed from the existing installation and unit workforce resources to support emergency response operations. Emergency management support teams augment the R&EM flight coming from the installation commander's established augmentee program. Installation will identify sufficient emergency management support team members based upon IRMP threat determination. Units having threat-based CCTs include logistics readiness, maintenance operations, munitions, medical, and civil engineers. The installation commander decides whether to establish CCTs. Criteria for the decisions are based on anticipated threat contamination type, installation capabilities, mission impact, and if decontamination will reduce protective measures. CCTs must perform decontamination on assets under the control of their functional area for threat-determined operations, as appropriate. The EOC will address decontamination requirements. For additional information, see AFMAN 10-2503 and AFTTP 3-2.46. When required, the EOC Director activates the CCT. This team will be managed by the CBRN Control Center. At a minimum, follow-on emergency responders that conduct operations within the hot and warm zones will accomplish and maintain currency in hazmat operations level training according to paragraph 8.5.5. Emergency management personnel, military, civilian, and contractor, that conduct operations within the hot and warm zones will accomplish and maintain currency in hazmat operations level training according to paragraph 8.5.5. CCA teams are activated by the EOC Director and managed by the CBRN Control Center. CCA is in an area in which contaminated individual protective equipment is removed. People, equipment, and supplies are decontaminated to allow processing between a toxic environment and a toxic-free area. The last area an individual can safely don individual protective equipment before moving into a contaminated area. Paragraph 5.8. Disaster Response Force Common Operating Picture. Each installation must develop and maintain an installation-level common operating picture in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17. The COP is intended to provide standardized, near real-time situational awareness of response forces, an incident or an event at the tactical, operational, and strategic level that can be shared and exchanged across the Air Force as well as with partner agencies. A DRF common operating picture may be a single system solution or a suite of system tools used together to achieve a minimum standard in Table 5.6. Narrator's Note. Table 5.6. Minimum Emergency Operations Center Common Operating Picture Standards will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 5.6. Sharing of DRF Common Operating Picture information with host and partner foreign nations will be determined locally. Headquarters AFIMSC will evaluate potential DRF COP systems and maintain a list of evaluated COPS, common operating pictures, that meet the minimum requirements within a single system solution or a suite of systems used together to achieve the minimum standards in Table 5.6. Installations seeking funding for common operating picture acquisition and or sustainment via combat support funds, PEC 27574F or PEC 27593, must obtain approval from Headquarters AFIMSC prior to funding. This information can be found at Headquarters AFIMSC Emergency Management SharePoint. The Installation Emergency Manager will ensure ICS forms are integrated into the DRF Common Operating Picture system or utilized externally to the Disaster Response Force Common Operating Picture for the creation of the Incident Action Plans, documentation of ICS activities, and other incident management activities. Installations located outside the U.S., its territories, and possessions will utilize ICS forms to the greatest extent possible. In the event activation and deactivation of the installation EOC for real-world incidents or exercises, the EOC manager will send the ICS form 213 general message to their respective AFIMSC detachment. AFIMSC and AFCECCXR within 24 hours. Editable forms can be found at the Federal Emergency Management Agency SharePoint. And a list of ICS forms are as follows. Narrator's note: the list of ICS forms will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for the list of ICS forms. Paragraph 5.9. Initial Response Force. A DoD Initial Response Force is a tailored force dispatched from the closest military installation by the Secretary of Defense or by the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff through the Deputy Director of Operations, National Joint Operations, and Intelligence Center directly upon notification of a U.S. nuclear weapon incident or nuclear or radiological incident. The Initial Response Force Commander is the DoD Incident Commander upon arrival at the accident site and will have single incident command authority over DoD assets in any security zone that is under sole DoD jurisdiction. The DoD Incident Commander will implement guidance and requirements as outlined in DoD Manual 3150.08. The Air Force will dispatch the DRF upon any incident, nuclear or non-nuclear, involving DoD resources, example being aircraft accident, as the initial response force in accordance with DoD Manual 3150.08. The initial response force mission is to take immediate life-saving actions and establish safety and security controls at the accident scene. Paragraph 5.10. Response Task Force. A DoD response force shall be properly staffed, trained, and equipped to coordinate all actions necessary to control and recover from a nuclear weapon accident or incident. The specific purpose of the response task force shall be to recover weapons and provide radiological accident assistance as per DoD Manual 3150.08. The Air Force maintains multiple response task forces. The U.S. Air Forces in Europe response task forces support the U.S. European Command Area of Responsibility, and Air Force Global Strike Command supports all domestic nuclear weapons and incident and accident responses. Upon assumption of command, the Response Task Force Commander will become the DoD Incident Commander, will incorporate the initial response force and maintain communication and liaison with federal, local, state, or host nation authorities established by the initial response force in accordance with DoD Manual 3150.08. The National Military Command Center, NMCC, or Secretary of Defense may activate the Response Task Force to support a nuclear weapons accident or incident of a weapon in Department of Energy custody or an incident under Department of Justice lead. Upon notification from the NMCC, the Air Force Service Watch Cell will notify Air Force Global Strike Command's Command Center or U.S. Air Forces in Europe's Command Center to place the Response Task Force on immediate deployment warning orders. Air Force Material Command's Command Center will make the notification to place Response Task Force supporting elements on direct deployment warning orders. After NMCC conducts a conference call with Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Air Force, or Chief Staff of Air Force will appoint the Response Task Force Commander and inform the owning MAJCOM Commander through the Air Force Service Watch Cell. The Response Task Force will deploy upon authorization of NMCC or assigned combatant commander. Air Force CAT and the MAJCOM CAT coordinates with U.S. Transportation Command Airlift Control Center to identify needed airlift. Paragraph 5.11. Installation Notification and Warning System. The Installation Notification and Warning System, INWS, is a combination of methods using audible and visual signals, verbal messages, and electronic communication. The installation commander will ensure the installation has an installation notification and warning system with the capability to disseminate rapidly and effectively the emergency information to warn all personnel according to timelines established in DoD Instruction 6055.17. See Table 5.7, Installation Notification and Warning System Components. Table 5.7, Installation Notification and Warning System Components. Components including audible and visual signals are horns, sirens, flags, and portable PA systems. Signals including electronic communications are local area network messages, mass notification systems, network broadcast systems, outdoor giant voice systems, reverse 911, social media, telephone alert messages, and television and radio. This concludes Table 5.7, Installation Notification and Warning System Components. The UFC 4-021-01 Design and Operations and Maintenance Mass Notification Systems and UFC 4-010-01 DoD Minimum Anti-Terrorism Standards for Buildings provides details about warning standards. The minimum capabilities for the Installation Notification Warning System will include the following. Standardized U.S. Air Force emergency notification signals specific to disaster warnings, attack warnings, and all clear procedures. Standardized attack warning signals for seaborne threat areas specific to alarm conditions green, yellow, red, and black procedures. U.S. forces in Korea alarm red is blue. Disseminate MOP procedures, MOP ready through MOP 4. Disseminate hurricane condition or tropical cyclone condition of readiness in a threat area in accordance with AFMAN 10-206. Provide watches, warnings, evacuation routes, and other alerting information to meet DoD and federal warning requirements outlined in DoD Instruction 6055.17. Include all on- and off-base agencies requiring support to include swimming pools, golf courses, child care centers, etc. Address unique populations, example being personnel with disabilities including motor, sensory, cognitive, and psychiatric impairments. Use DoD required individual building mass notification systems to disseminate emergency management information. New and renovated buildings will install a mass notification system to meet the DoD anti-terrorism requirements in UFC 4-010-01. Planners consider the threat to the operational environment, contingency operations, and installation sustainment in which the installation notification warning system operates with will ensure that all personnel can directly hear or see status changes and take action. The installation notification warning system will include alarm signals and notification procedures. These signals can be supplemented with signals compatible with local, national, host nation, or theater systems. Follow command and theater guidance when more than one system applies. Domestic locations must use the installation notification warning system that complies with Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and National Weather Service Emergency Managers Weather Information Defense Network and Emergency Alerting System alerting methods, requirements, and capabilities. Off-base systems are the responsibility of the City or County Emergency Management Office. CONUS locations will work with the City or County Emergency Management Office to synchronize weekly installation notification and warning system checks in accordance with a DoD Instruction 6055.17. Installations must use the standardized Be Ready training aids entitled Air Force Emergency Notification Signals, Air Force Attack Warning Signals for Seaborne Threat Areas, and MOP Provide Standardization. These training aids are available as part of the Air Force Be Ready awareness campaign through the installation's R&EM flight. Display these visual aids in common and high traffic areas. CONUS locations must use warning systems and signals that are compatible with local, host nation, or theater systems in accordance with the Department of State or Combatant Command guidance. Alert, notification, and warning methods must provide both overt and covert notification capability. Warning systems will broadcast voice messages in English and the dominant language of the local personnel working on the installation. Deployable units will consult plans for specific signals used at the deployed locations. For deployments to bare base locations, the Combatant Command Communications Unit must provide notification and warning systems. Paragraph 5.12. Lessons learned. The installation commander will ensure installations send after-action reports via the Air Force Joint Lessons Learned Information System in accordance with AFI 10-1302, Air Force Lessons Learned Program. Chapter 6. Emergency Management Exercise Requirements. Paragraph 6.1. Purpose. This chapter provides Air Force emergency management exercise guidance in support of AFI 90-201. The Wing Inspection Team will reference AFI 90-201, Governing Directives, Supplemental Guidance, or Host or Tenant Memorandum of Understanding or Memorandum of Agreement to determine exercise and participation requirements. The Wing Inspection Team will use this chapter, Table 6.1, and Table 6.2 to develop and conduct installation emergency management exercises to ensure emergency management exercises will support host and tenant units' full spectrum readiness. Table 6.1, Emergency Management Plan and Capabilities. Step 1, Emergency Management Plan. Execute reporting and notification protocols, both internal, installation personnel, including tenant organizations, and external, with higher headquarters, state, local, and tribal governments, other military departments, and host nation partners. Step 2. Activate local support agreements to include mutual aid and assistance agreements. Example being mutual aid assistance, Memorandum of Understanding, Memorandum of Agreement, and Status of Forces Agreement. Step 3. Establish situational awareness and a common operating picture. Step 4. Activate PA information and warning. External. Step 5. Execute shelter operations procedures for applicable shelter types that apply to the installation. Include collective protection operations and maintenance if applicable. Step 6. Exercise shelter in place and lockdown. Step 7. Provide defense support to civil authorities. Step 8. Maintain continuity of mission essential functions. Step 9. Provide incident preparation, response, and recovery recommendations to senior leadership. Step 10. Integrate the Seaborne warning and reporting system into the installation's operational reporting process. Step 1. Emergency management capabilities. Activate installation notification warning system. Integrate periodic testing of the local weather watch, advisory, and warning dissemination systems. Step 2. Perform AFSC-specific wartime tasks while wearing Seaborne protective equipment. Step 3. form unit wartime METs in a highly contested environment to validate the warfighter's ATSO in CBRN. Step 4. Employ emergency responders. Step 5. Provide public health and medical response. Include behavioral health for disaster responses. Step 6. Establish on-scene incident command system peacetime scenarios. Step 7. Provide on-scene security and protection. Step 8. Establish and operate command, control, and communication for the CAT, EOC, UCCs, CBRN Control Center, and on-scene. Step 9. Operate the EOC. Step 10. Provide evacuation management and mass care services. Step 11. Execute search and recovery operations. Example being major accident response and mass casualty incident. Step 12. Monitor environmental health and safety. Step 13. Maintain and restore infrastructure systems. Step 14. Establish fatality management services. Step 15. Provide spiritual care, crisis intervention, and mass casualty support. Step 16. Maintain critical transportation infrastructure. Step 17. Provide legal assistance response. Step 18. Expeditiously issue or replace chemical warfare defense ensembles to all CBRN high-risk area assigned personnel during increased threat of CBRN attack based on Table 9.3. Step 19. Provide resource management during contingencies. Step 20. Calculate hazard duration of CBRN attacks involved. Step 21. First responder, first receiver, and emergency responder operations. Step 22. Medical, veterinary, disease containment, and public health response and recovery operations. Note: this requirement occurs semi-annually. This concludes Table 6.1, Emergency Management Plan and Capabilities. Table 6.2, Emergency Management Exercise Requirements, will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 6.2. Paragraph 6.2. Off-installation emergency management exercises. Off-installation exercises should be conducted at a minimum of once a year. Unit emergency action plans must be included, and engagement with supporting local or host nation emergency response forces, if practical, in accordance with the DoD Instruction 6055.17. Paragraph 6.3. Chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear exercises. Installations will develop realistic CBRN exercises appropriate to the installation, peacetime, and wartime operations in support of a combatant command's area of responsibility, threats, and vulnerabilities. These exercises will test the unit wartime METs in a highly contested CBRN environment. These exercises will be used to validate the installation's ATSO in a CBRN environment and Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 Annexes Effectiveness. The Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 Annexes require levels of competencies, coordination with local, state, federal agencies, and host nations, and CBRN readiness of an installation. Installation shall consider Department of Homeland Security national planning scenarios and exercise participants from all emergency support functions in accordance with the DoD Instruction 3020.52. Task qualification proficiency training held during the unit's ATSO rodeos reinforced the airmen's ability to execute their METs in a highly contested, degraded environment. During unit ATSO rodeos, UTC assigned personnel should demonstrate their ability to deliver designed operational capability task capabilities and execute METs across the full spectrum of operating conditions to include a CBRN contested environment. The career field managers will provide task qualification training that enhances a commander's ability to assess the effectiveness of their unit's ASSO training to comply with wartime taskings. Accomplishing an ATSO rodeo does not fulfill the requirement to conduct integrated installation CBRN exercises. Career field managers will identify the Air Force specialty MET required by the airman. Paragraph 6.4. Wing Inspection Team General Information. The Wing Inspection Team Chief should use the Exercise Evaluation Course computer-based training to train Wing Inspection Team members. Topics include an overview of the Air Force Emergency Management Program, team member roles and responsibilities, AFIMS, exercise planning, coordination, ground rules, scripting, conduct, evaluation, reports, and analysis. Paragraph 6.5. Wing Inspection Team Concept of Operations. In accordance with AFI 90-201, Wing Inspection Team members are critical to the success of the exercise and evaluation program. Selected by unit commanders from their most qualified personnel and acting as exercise trusted agents, and they directly assist the Wing Inspection Team Chief by identifying, planning, and arranging discrete exercise events within their respective area of expertise. The Wing Inspection Team members, utilizing their knowledge of command emphasis areas and guidelines, aid the Wing Inspection Team Chief in setting overall exercise objectives. In the exercise planning stage, they interact with the Wing Inspection Team Chief to build the exercise and establish a workable exercise timetable or schedule of events. During the exercise, the Wing Inspection Team members execute scheduled events as the direction of the Wing Inspection Team Chief and evaluate the resultant response. They also coordinate with other Wing Inspection Team members during exercise execution to ensure exercise events do not impede the overall exercise schedule. Make necessary exercise adjustments in coordination with the Wing Inspection Team Chief guidance. Their evaluations and observations become the basis for the exercise critique and ultimately the exercise evaluation report. After the exercise, the Wing Inspection Team must be able to provide participants with an accurate overall rating of their performance. The Wing Inspection Team must be prepared to justify and support all deficiencies discovered during the evaluation. Based upon the Wing Inspection Team evaluation of a particular plan, regulation, or procedure, all recommended changes will be forwarded to the OPR to improve upon their processes. Paragraph 6.6. Wing Inspection Team Duties. The installation commander assigns a Wing Inspection Team Chief and directs each assigned and tenant unit to appoint highly qualified personnel to become members of the Wing Inspection Team. If a unit will have more than one Wing Inspection Team member, then the unit commander designates one member as the unit's Wing Inspection Team manager. This gives the installation Wing Inspection Team Chief one point of contact for that unit. The Wing Inspection Team Chief is the point of contact for exercise planning and coordinating and will interface with higher headquarters such as Air Force Inspector General or Joint Service Inspection Teams, MAJCOM Inspector General, local and host nation community officials as needed to plan and conduct exercise effectiveness. Prepare a localized exercise evaluation program operating instruction. For additional guidance on preparing a localized exercise evaluation program operating instruction, see AFI 90-201. Coordinate with staff judge advocate, public affairs, local and host nation law enforcement agencies, and governing civil authorities before conducting off-base exercises. Train wing inspection team members. Maintain a roster of wing inspection team members trained or requiring training, and monitor annual training requirements for the wing inspection team members. Coordinate with the squadron or unit commanders on the appointment and training of unit's inspection team personnel. The wing inspection team chief will incorporate local communities as often as possible in installation emergency management exercises. The wing inspection team chief will use the Inspector General Evaluation Management System to track and resolve significant problems identified in higher headquarters and local inspections, installation exercises, unit self-assessment, and real-world operations after action reports. The wing inspection team chief will use the Inspector General Evaluation Management System to document problems, establish accountability for corrections, and monitor corrective action through implementation and conclusion phases. The wing inspection team chief will use the Inspector General Evaluation Management System discrepancy sheet as best management practice to check self-inspections and or compliance outlined in AFI 90-201. The wing inspection team members should assist the wing inspection team chief in planning, coordinating, and executing local exercises, attend all training courses required to improve evaluation skills, provide exercise objectives and recommended events for each exercise, obtain, prepare, and use exercise props and materials, provide evaluations, observations, and recommendations on each exercise to the wing inspection team chief within the predetermined time limits set by the wing inspection team chief, notify the wing inspection team chief of any impending leave, temporary duty, or other absence which may affect the evaluation of a scheduled exercise. Work closely with the organizational commander to ensure that exercise objective is realistic and are a real test of the unit's capabilities. Be knowledgeable of all plans, regulations, and other directives which task their particular unit. Maintain current copies of checklists and other procedural guidelines to ensure a thorough and unbiased evaluation. Review response checklists and suggest if checklist needs improvement, updates, or additional items added. Paragraph 6.7. Exercise ground rules. The following will be used to ensure maximum training values are derived from exercises and that units are accurately able to assess their ability to accomplish the mission. These ground rules describe safety and administrative requirements that minimize unintended exercise impacts. Avoid stereotyping exercises. The wing inspection team will vary exercise locations to increase realism and participation. The wing inspection team will thoroughly plan and design scenarios to create the stress and pressure that occurs in a real disaster or attack situation. When responding to an exercise, units should use warning lights, but no sirens on emergency vehicles. Units should use vehicle-mounted sirens or horns to announce withdrawal from the accident site. Units will follow procedures in Air Force Joint Instruction AFJI 11-204, Operational Procedures for Aircraft Carrying Hazardous Materials. During nuclear weapon accident exercises, installations will use line numbers from Technical Order 11 November-20-11, General Firefighting Procedures, in telephone, radio, and written communication. Conduct exercises in security areas. However, do not plan disaster exercises to simulate a hostile or covert penetration of security areas. Do not block alert force routes or runways, and do not locate simulated accidents closer than 1,000 feet, 304.8 meters, to weapon-loaded aircraft. Consider safety in all aspects of the exercise. Wear all individual protective training equipment, including protective masks, during exercises. Exceptions. Exercise participants will not wear protective masks while driving a government-owned vehicle off base or while driving a privately owned vehicle. Include the phrase, "This is an exercise message," at the beginning and end of all written and verbal exercise communications. When using the installation warning system, tell the base populace, the surrounding civilian population, and local civil authorities well in advance of the exercise. Facility evacuation. During exercises involving simulated toxic materials or explosive hazards, place primary emphasis on evacuation and protection of personnel and equipment. Leave one person in each evacuated facility for security and fire protection purposes. Do not evacuate facilities which, if shut down and restarted, would cause damage or generate considerable expense. Do not evacuate the facilities below without coordination. Command posts, control centers, base operations dispatch desks, air traffic control facilities, central security control, telephone switchboards, communication centers, and fire and weather stations. Alert aircraft, alert facilities, liquid oxygen and nitrogen plants, petroleum, oils and lubricants, hydrant facilities, computer rooms, and waste disposal facilities, hospital, clinic, and dental facilities, academic testing facilities when testing is in progress, security and entry control points and posts, schools, nurseries, base exchange facilities, commissaries, credit unions, banks, post offices, religious services, dining facilities, and military court facilities. Munitions storage areas and navigational aid facilities. Restrict entry into facilities exempted from total evacuation to essential personnel and people having legitimate business within the facility. Allow personnel who were conducting business when directed to evacuate to continue their business, but remain in the facility until the evacuation portion of the exercise is over. Check evacuation plans for exempted facilities and question assigned personnel to make sure they know how to evacuate. Do not use major accidents, events, and conducted and evaluated as part of an attack response exercise to meet Wing Inspection Team major accident response exercise requirements. Simulations or tabletops should only be used as a last resort. Even if the action is simulated, personnel should demonstrate knowledge of the appropriate procedures. Give required operational reports, voice and message, to the evaluators in writing. Do not transmit these reports off base unless instructed to do so. Complete all participant feedback forms and give them to the evaluators. Do not recall people from leave or temporary duty. Paragraph 6.8. Exercise preparation and planning. Exercises require thorough planning and preparation if all exercise objectives are to be satisfied. Published objectives are within the essential regulation or directive requiring the exercise. Unit commander can determine other objectives based on findings from previous exercises. Exercise sequence planning. The Wing Inspection Team Chief determines and coordinates exercise planning requirements and dates based on the complexity of the exercise. The following paragraphs provide a notional exercise planning schedule which incorporates all required planning elements. Wing Inspection Team Chiefs may adjust the number of meetings needed provided all required elements are addressed. Meeting number 1 is an initial planning effort to identify exercise objectives and concepts, schedule times and dates for Wing Inspection Team meeting, and establish OPRs for each scenario. Also discuss the likely scenario. Meeting number 2. Wing Inspection Team members meet to develop scenarios and establish props required and assign OPRs to obtain. Wing inspection team members provide inputs, event cards, to the Wing inspection team chief based on exercise scripts. Assess and validate emergency management capabilities listed in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2, and use the installation threats listed in Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 as the scenarios dictates in accordance with this instruction. Meeting number 3. Wing Inspection Team Chief publishes a draft of master scenario of event listing and briefs to Wing Inspection Team members. Also, adjust the exercise schedule if needed and discuss previous findings. The Wing Inspection Team members review the sequence to ensure all objectives that the exercise challenges all participants. Meeting number 4. Wing Inspection Team Chief gives a pre-exercise brief. Discuss limb facts and give out radios and call signs. Distribute inputs, publish cards for upcoming exercise execution. Wing Inspection Team members should be in place at their evaluation posts as directed by the Wing Inspection Team Chief. For exercises requiring fire department and/or air traffic control tower involvement, these evaluators must be in place 30 minutes before exercise start to formally notify the fire and tower chief to ensure that agencies can identify response forces and retain an actual force for real-time emergencies. Wing Inspection Team Chief will approve any deviations or exercise exemption to the published timing sequence. The Wing Inspection Team members should stay attuned to potential unsafe actions by exercise players. Place the exercise on hold for any risky activities observed by any Wing Inspection Team member and notify the Wing Inspection Team Chief directly of any safety concerns. Actual emergencies occurring during the exercise can cause termination or the placement of a hold status for the exercise. The Wing Inspection Team Chief, in consultation with the responding unit's incident commander, will make the final decision of whether to abort or put the exercise on hold. Minor errors corrected on the spot by players should not be identified as a finding. Paragraph 6.9. Post-exercise actions. The Wing Inspection Team Chief will schedule a hot wash to follow the exercise, review exercise objectives, findings, observations, and recommendations during exercise hot wash. Exercise evaluations will include all exercise main events with findings, observations, and recommendations for every main event. The installation commander has the option to require exercises to be rated against the current Air Force grading criteria. Exercise participants will have the option to request full justification on findings that they feel are questionable. Chapter 7. Support to the Air Force Emergency Management Program and Categorization of Installation Personnel. Paragraph 7.1. Functional Responsibilities. This attachment summarizes and consolidates general functional responsibilities for an integrated Air Force emergency management program. See Table 7.1, which shows the specific functional support. Narrator's Note. Table 7.1. Specific functional support will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document or Table 7.1. Paragraph 7.2. Categorization of installation personnel. A community profile serves to inform the installation commander on the population and facilities to be protected. This includes an assessment of demographic information, personnel categorization, infrastructure, and installation zoning to identify, prioritize, and allocate resource appropriately. At the installation level, a community profile entails categorization of personnel and a comprehensive examination of the community's demographics, infrastructure, requirements, and resources. Define the community's profile in the basic plan using the categorization of personnel defined in paragraph 7.3. A community profile is information about the people and place the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 is designed to protect, respond to, and help with recovery. It is the intended audience of the planning efforts. Paragraph 7.3. Categorization of personnel. As directed in DoD Instruction 6055.17, the categorization of personnel provides the installation commander a way to identify categories of personnel which aid in determining the proper employment and protection of personnel. Review Table 7.2 for a description of personnel categories. The categorization of personnel enables the installation commander, anti-terrorism officer, and installation emergency manager to prioritize emergency responders, installation access, and use of resources by using the integrated risk management mission essential functions during increased threat situations. See Table 7.2, Categorization of Installation Personnel. Table 7.2, Categorization of Installation Personnel. Category 1. Personnel, U.S. or non-U.S. citizens, providing continuity services to support the mission essential functions during emergency conditions and designate in writing those who require installation access during an emergency, identified and approved in continuity of operations plans. Category 2. All U.S. personnel who do not support mission essential functions response actions. They are not Category 1 or 5 personnel. Personnel include family members living on and off base, non-essential military, DoD civilians, DoD contractors, and U.S. government USG personnel. Category 2A-N. Animal needs population, including personnel owning or responsible for military working animals, to include dogs and horses, animals as personnel and or family pets, animals on installations such as livestock. Category 2PR. DoD detainee populations in prisons, brigs, or other detention facilities, including all Category 1 through 5 personnel assigned to, supporting, or incarcerated within such detention facilities. Category 2PR includes corrections officers, guards, administrative personnel, and specialized transportation services, not counted with Category 5 first responder populations. Category 2SC, school population, including all Category 2 through 4 personnel attending or working at school, childcare, or daycare services at a DoD school or other DoD-provided location situated on or in the vicinity of an Air Force installation, when the installation has jurisdictional responsibility for the school or facility. Category 2SN. Special needs populations includes all Category 2 through 4 personnel with medical and special needs and disability special needs. Category 2TR. Evacuation assistance needed, including all Category 2 through 4 personnel. For example, no access to personal vehicles for evacuation. Category 3. Other personnel supporting U.S. military operations, including non-U.S. citizens employed directly by DoD contractor, or an agency or department of the United States government, if not in another category. Foreign military personnel employed by host nation. Category 4. Allied and or coalition personnel, including host nation and third country nationals assisting U.S. operations per international agreement. DoD does not directly employ these personnel. Category 5. Category 5 personnel include all personnel in performing response and or recovery operations as identified in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. Category 5 emergency responders. Personnel, U.S. or non-U.S. citizens, designated to perform emergency responder tasks during an emergency resulting from one or more identified hazards and requiring installation access during an emergency. For example, emergency management staff, C2 personnel, UCC, EOC, CAT staff, public health emergency officers, and liaison officers. Category 5, first receivers, personnel, U.S. or non-U.S. citizens, designated to perform first receiver tasks at a medical facility during an emergency resulting from one or more identified hazards and requiring access to their designated medical treatment facility and or clinic during an emergency. Category 5, first responders, personnel, U.S. or non-U.S. citizens, designated to perform first responder tasks during an emergency resulting from one or more identified hazards, requiring installation access during an emergency, and requiring direct emergency access to the incident scene or related areas. Category 5, mass care providers, personnel, U.S. or non-U.S. citizens, designated to provide or support mass care operations before, during, or after an emergency resulting from one or more identified hazards and requiring installation access during an emergency. During most circumstances, mass care providers do not travel to the incident site or related areas until after the site or areas are secured, evaluated, and deemed safe. Category 5, responder services, personnel providing technical support services in support of preparedness, response, and or recovery tasks supporting first responders, first receivers, and or emergency responders. Information technology, IT providers, power and or utility providers, emergency generator operators, transportation operators, equipment operators, other skilled support personnel. This concludes Table 7.2, Categorization of Installation Personnel. Paragraph 7.4, Categorization Planning. For planning purposes, personnel categories aid in the development of emergency actions for each category of personnel to be included in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. The following paragraphs provide more detail about their impact and role in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. Category 1 personnel are military, DoD civilians, or DoD contractors providing direct roles supporting the installation's mission, such as aircraft maintenance. It is recommended Category 1 personnel be included in an emergency response installation entry plan during increased threats or natural disasters. Personnel designated as Category 1 and 5 should be given established access routes and permission to access the installation during any emergencies, including access to the installation during increased force protection conditions, example being Force Protection Condition Charlie and Delta. The Installation Emergency Manager will write the approved Integrated Defense Council and MWIC process into the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. For force protection information, reference DoD IO-2000.16 V1_AFI 10-2045-0 Anti-Terrorism AT Program Implementation. Category 1 and 5 personnel not activated to support the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 or Anti-Terrorism Plan roll into Category 2 personnel for the duration of the emergency, unless activated by the installation commander. This process is identified in both plans. Category 1 and 5 personnel may be exempted during mandatory evacuation orders based on the installation commander's intent. Exemption from evacuation will be written into the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. The Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 provides plans for emergencies when Category 1 personnel voluntarily evacuate or must not travel based on local community directions. This may include regular Air Force, government civilians, and contractors. Category 2 personnel are U.S. and non-U.S. citizens on the installation who do not support the installation's mission, example being dependents, retirees, child care providers, and maintenance contractors. This category of personnel may be divided into separate categories based on the resources needed to allow the installation commander to protect them properly. Based on the demographics of the installation's population, consider using multilingual announcements and signs to notify Category 2 personnel of the installation commander's decisions during an incident. Example being shelter in place, evacuation, and active shooter incidents. Category 2 TR, transportation, is those individuals, Category 2 through 4, who require transportation to meet the installation commander's risk management decision. Example, evacuate. The installation will require pre-planning to meet the transportation needs through organic means, support agreements, or a contract method. Develop a plan when Category 1 personnel are not available. Example being transport personnel or provide resources. Further example being water or fuel. Category 2, SN, special needs, disability, are those individuals, Category 2 through 4, who have medical special needs. Category 2, SC, school, pertains to school-age children, Category 2 through 4, being cared for by attending schools on the installation, daycare, or child care facilities. Category 2, PR, prison, is for installations hosting prisons or detention facilities. This includes inmates, correction officers, and administrative personnel. The prison or detention facility vehicles should not be counted as a part of the installation's organic vehicle fleet. As a planning focus, the correction officers are not counted as part of the Category 5 manning. Category 2, AN, animal, pertains to animals housed on the installation, either pets, livestock, or military working animals. Based on lessons learned from major disasters, pet owners are reluctant to leave their animals behind when told to evacuate. That is why it is important to include animal care or shelters in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. This population may include dogs, cats, birds, aquarium fish, reptiles, amphibians, and other small animals, and does not extend to trees or plants. This subcategory includes all other domesticated animals, such as horses, cattle, sheep, and pigs, kept in established facilities such as barns, stables, on board the installation, and other property of the U.S. government or assigned personnel. For Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 planning purposes, consider a voluntary registry. Example being installation veterinarian service of animal owners requiring assistance during an emergency. Temporarily housed animals require pet crates, carriers, and/or designated enclosures and additional water and animal food supplies. It is suggested animals be separated by size from those personnel who do not have animals. Identify animal needs populations by facility or location to ensure proper type and quantity of transportation assets are dispatched to each location. Example being horse trailer and animal carriers. Category 3 personnel are non-U.S. citizens employed by DoD, DoD contractors, or other government or non-government agencies. Example being federal agencies and Red Cross, supporting the installation's mission. It is important support agreements include the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2 emergency actions. Category 4 personnel are those personnel allied and/or coalition partners operating on the installation. This includes host nation and third country nationals assisting the installation per an international agreement. Emergency action procedures for Category 4 personnel are included in the Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. Category 5 personnel include all installation first and emergency responders. For planning purposes, Category 5 personnel can be broken down further. Category 5 first responders are those U.S. or non-U.S. citizens performing first responder duties during an all-hazards incident. The installation may use this category of personnel when developing installation emergency access plans during a disaster or increased threat to the installation. Category 5 first receivers are those U.S. or non-U.S. citizens designated to perform medical first receiver tasks as an installation medical unit. The installation may also use this category of personnel when developing installation emergency access plans during a disaster or increased threat to the installation. Category 5 emergency responders perform emergency actions during an incident and perform follow-on support at an incident site, the CAT and EOC. Category 5 mass care providers are those U.S. or non-U.S. citizens providing or supporting mass care operations before, during, or after the emergency. Mass care includes those supporting a mass casualty incident or providing shelter management arrangements for those affected by a natural disaster, terrorist, or nation-state attack. Category 5 responder services are those U.S. or non-U.S. citizens, example being information technology and power and or utility providers, emergency generator transportation and equipment operators, and other skilled support personnel, providing technical support to Category 5 first responders, first receivers, and or emergency responders responding to or recovering from an all hazards incident. Chapter 8. Training Programs. Paragraph 8.1. Base Emergency Preparedness Orientation. The installation commander must provide emergency preparedness information to all assigned personnel, including family members, upon initial indoctrination and on an annual basis or more frequently, as the local threat situation dictates. Educational topics include basic preparedness measures, natural, man-made, and technological disasters, and the types of actions to consider before, during, and after the disaster. This information will no longer be provided through a standalone training course. Instead, this information will be provided to airmen during newcomers' orientation. Paragraph 8.2. Air Force Emergency Management Program Senior Leader Brief. This instructor-led brief educates and equips installation senior leaders with the guidance and tools necessary to effectively implement the installation's emergency management program at their level. This includes how the Air Force Emergency Management Program is organized and implemented on the installation, as well as local policies, structure, and responsibilities in accordance with Major Command and local emergency management program directives such as the installation's emergency management plan and other plans or requirements. There are no prerequisites identified for this course. However, familiarization with the Air Force Emergency Management Program Senior Leader Guide is highly recommended prior to brief. This brief is designed for new commanders. New commanders must complete the brief within 180 days or 6 regularly scheduled drills for Air Reserve Components ARC numbers of arrival. This brief is only required upon initial arrival to an installation. Recurring education is not required while assigned to the same installation unless the senior leader's roles and responsibilities change or major program changes occur. Only provide a new briefing as needed based on senior leader transition. Paragraph 8.3. Air Force Emergency Management Program ZZ 133131. This online course consists of individual knowledge-based objectives that provide students the ability to identify the program's purpose, policies, and structure along with the Air Force Incident Management System. This course serves as the foundation for follow-on specialized area training. There are no prerequisites or instructor-led components identified for this course. Individuals assigned to the installation's DRF or other supporting positions within the installation's emergency management program will complete this course. This course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment and no recurring training is required unless major program changes occur. This course meets the requirements of Federal Emergency Management Agency's Independent Study IS courses, IS 100 and IS 700, while ensuring military unique C2 requirements remain sound to execute critical mission operations. Paragraph 8.4. Unit Emergency Management Representative ZZ 133062. This two-part course consists of individual knowledge-based and localized objectives that provide students the knowledge and skills necessary to manage their unit emergency management program. It emphasizes the unit emergency management representative roles and responsibilities, unit education and training to include the installation's Be Ready awareness campaign, equipment requirements, planning responsibilities, and emergency response at the unit level. The Air Force Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. Unit emergency management representatives must complete this course within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of initial assignment as a primary or alternate unit emergency management representative. The two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Re-accomplish the instructor-led component only if the student is appointed as the unit emergency management representative at a new installation. Accomplish recurring training by attending at least one annual unit emergency management representative meeting held by the installation's R&EM flight. This meeting is in addition to establish program review requirements, document and maintain attendance using localized procedures. Paragraph 8.5. Air Force Emergency Response Operations, First and Emergency Responders, ZZ 133130. This online course consists of individual knowledge-based objectives that provide students the ability to identify the purpose, policies, structure, roles, responsibilities, and procedures for conducting Air Force emergency response operations. The Air Force Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. Air Force first responders and emergency responders must complete this course within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of initial assignment as an incident commander or by those individuals fulfilling the role of a first or emergency responder. The online course is a one-time requirement upon initial assignment. Students who have already completed their Air Force Emergency Response Operations Introduction or Air Force Emergency Response Operations Command and Control are not required to complete this new course or its prerequisite. Accomplish recurring training through performing first or emergency response duties during an exercise or actual emergency response annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. The unit in which Air Force first responders and emergency responders are assigned will provide additional localized and performance-based training as part of unit or functional area training and qualifying. All Air Force first responders and emergency responders must accomplish and maintain hazmat training in accordance with 2.9 Code of Federal Regulations 1910.120 Q. Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response. Air Force first responders and emergency responders should train to the appropriate level based on the duties and functions as outlined in their career field education and training plan. Contact the installation's Fire and Emergency Services flight for hazmat training information. This course meets the requirements of Federal Emergency Management Agency's independent study courses, IS 200 and IS 800, while ensuring military unique C2 requirements remain sound to execute critical mission operations. Paragraph 8.6. Incident Command System 300 and 400. This instructor-led course consists of individual knowledge-based, and performance-based objectives to provide students the knowledge and skills necessary to assume supervisory roles in expanding incidents where multiple functions and agency resources are needed to ensure life safety, incident stabilization, and property preservation. ICS 300 and perform in a management capability within a multi-agency coordination system, ICS 400. This course is required for personnel in accordance with the Functional Career Field Education and Training Plan. The Air Force Emergency Management Program course and the Air Force Emergency Response Operations First and Emergency Responders course are prerequisites. ICS 300-400 courses are available in the following three options. 1. An in-residence Air Force formal training course, X3AZR3EXXX0N1A, conducted at the Department of Defense Fire Academy. Personnel will work through the Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center to obtain a course slot. Air National Guard personnel will request courses slots through NGB A4X. 2. An installation course taught by qualified ICS 300-400 instructors. 3. A local course, example being community training, that qualifies for reciprocity. Individuals appointed as an incident commander must complete this course to be appointed to the installation's incident management team for DoD response actions. The in-residence course is a one-time requirement. This course meets the requirements of the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Incident Command System courses, ICS 300 and ICS 400, while ensuring military unique command and control requirements remain sound to execute critical mission operations. Paragraph 8.7. EOC Operations ZZ 133132. This two-part course consists of individual knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to conduct EOC operations. The Air Force Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. EOC members must complete this course within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment as an EOC member. This two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Students who have already completed either Air Force Emergency Response Operations Introduction or Air Force Emergency Response Operations Command and Control are not required to complete this new course or its prerequisite. An instructor-led component is required only if the student is appointed as an EOC member at a new installation. Accomplished recurring training through participation in EOC operations during an exercise or actual EOC activation annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. This course meets the requirements of the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Independent Study and State-Delivered G courses, IS 701, IS 706, IS 775, and G 191, while ensuring military unique C2 requirements remain sound to execute critical mission operations. Paragraph 8.8. Emergency Operations Center, Director, MLMD C813. This instructor-led course consists of individual knowledge-based and performance-based objectives that provide students the knowledge and skills necessary to perform EOC command and control functions effectively during emergency and contingency situations. The Emergency Management Program course and the EOC Operations course are prerequisites for this course. This course is an in-residence course conducted at the Air University's College of Professional Development. This course must be completed by individuals appointed as primary and alternate EOC director. The individual requiring the training will coordinate with their unit training manager. The unit training manager will then coordinate with Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center to obtain course slots for the EOC director, ensuring there are trained personnel assigned to these positions on the installation at all times. A&G personnel will request course slots through NGB A4 XD. The in-residence course is a one-time requirement. However, personnel who have not performed DRF duties for 5 or more years and have been placed in a position identified in paragraph 8.8.3 must repeat this course. Paragraph 8.9 Control Center Operations ZZ 133056. This two-part course consists of individual, knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to conduct CBRN response operations in a unit control center. The Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This course must be completed within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment as a control center member. This two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Instructor-led component is required only if the student is appointed as a control center member at a new installation. Accomplish recurring training through participation in control center operations during an exercise or actual emergency annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. Accomplish additional localized and performance-based training as part of unit or functional area training and qualifying as appropriate. Paragraph 8.10 U.S. Air Force CONUS Response Task Force Course ZZ 133133. This online course consists of individual knowledge-based objectives that provide students the ability to coordinate actions necessary to control and recover from a radiological accident. The Emergency Management Program course and the Air Force Emergency Response Operations First and Emergency Responders course are prerequisites for this course. This course must be completed within 90 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment to CONUS Response Task Force by individuals identified in their Installation Emergency Management Plan 10-2. The online course is a one-time requirement upon initial assignment to CONUS Response Task Force. Accomplish additional localized and performance-based training as part of unit or functional area training and qualifying as appropriate. This course meets the requirements of the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Independent Study Course, IS 836, while ensuring military unit command and control requirements remain sound to execute critical mission operations. Paragraph 8.11 Shelter Management Teams ZZ 133052. This two-part course consists of individual knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to conduct and manage shelter operations. The Air Force Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This course must be completed in accordance with the following guidance. Members assigned to natural disaster shelters will accomplish training within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment. Members assigned to other shelter types will accomplish just-in-time training when threat posture increases. This two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Instructor-led component is required only if the student is appointed as a shelter management team member at a new installation. Accomplish recurring training through participation in shelter operations during an exercise or actual emergency annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. Additional localized and performance-based training will be provided by the individuals assigned unit as part of unit or functional area training and qualifying as appropriate. Depending on shelter type, civil engineers may provide training on shelter systems such as power generation, filter changes, and owner-user maintenance. Training will include collective protection system if systems exist on the installation. Paragraph 8.12 Contamination Control Team ZZ 133053. This two-part course consists of individual knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to identify the purpose, policies, structure, roles, responsibilities, and procedures for conducting CCT, Contamination Control Team, operations. The Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This course must be completed within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment as a CCT member. This two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Instructor-led component is required only if the student is appointed as a CCT member at a new installation. Accomplish recurring training through participation in contamination control operations during an exercise or actual emergency annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. The individuals assigned a unit will provide additional localized and performance-based training as part of unit or functional area training and qualifying. Paragraph 8.13 Contamination Control Area Team. This two-part course consists of individual knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to conduct CCA operations. The Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This course must be completed within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment as a CCA team member. This two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Reaccomplish the instructor-led component only if the student is appointed as a CCA team member at a new installation. Accomplish recurring CCA operations training through participation during an exercise or actual emergency annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. Paragraph 8.14 Contamination Control Station Team. This two-part course consists of individual knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to conduct CCS operations. The Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This course must be completed within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignments as a CCS team member. This two-part course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Reaccomplish the instructor-led component only if the student is appointed as a CCS team member at a new installation. Accomplish recurring training through participation in CCS operations during an exercise or actual emergency annually. Documenting participation is accomplished and maintained using localized procedures. Paragraph 8.15 Post-attack and incident reconnaissance. This online course consists of individual, knowledge-based objectives that provide students the ability to identify the purpose, policies, structures, roles, and responsibilities of a post-attack and incident reconnaissance team member. The Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This course must be completed within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment as a post-attack and incident reconnaissance team member. This online course is a one-time requirement upon initial position assignment. Reaccomplish this course only if the student is appointed as a post-attack and incident reconnaissance team member at a new installation. Accomplish recurring training through participation in at least one exercise or actual emergency response annually. Document and maintain participation records using localized procedures. The individual's assigned unit will provide additional localized and performance-based training as part of unit or functional area training and qualify. Paragraph 8.16 Emergency Management Support Team ZZ 133050. This instructor-led training consists of individual, knowledge-based, localized, and performance-based objectives that provide students the ability to support the installation's R and EM flight during emergency operations. The Emergency Management Program course is a prerequisite for this course. This one-time training requirement must be completed within 60 days or 4 regularly scheduled drills for ARC members of assignment as an Emergency Management Support Team member. It is only reaccomplished if the student permanent change of stations and is appointed as an Emergency Management Support Team member at the new installation. Annually accomplish recurring training through participation in supporting installations R and EM flight operations during an exercise or actual emergency. Document and maintain participation records using localized procedures. Paragraph 8.17 Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear Defense Training. Seaborne defense education and training is designed to provide the proper level of knowledge and proficiency to the total force and developing expeditionary airmen ready for operating in a seaborne environment. Seaborne Defense Accession Course. This one-time only course, conducted during all accession training, provides basic knowledge of the seaborne threat, protective equipment, and actions to survive a seaborne attack. Personnel who graduate basic military training at Joint Base San Antonio are awarded completion credit for both Seaborne Defense Awareness web-based training and Seaborne Defense Training, ZZ 133039, as of the date listed on their Basic Military Training Certificate. For personnel who have not completed the Seaborne Defense Accession course, Seaborne Defense Awareness Training, web-based and classroom, will be completed within 90 days of assignment to their first duty station. Seaborne Defense Awareness web-based training. This one-hour online course consists of individual knowledge-based objectives that provide airmen with information required to identify and respond to seaborne threats in a case of an attack. This course is only required every 18 months for specific Air Force specialty codes. Attachment 2. Identified that have a low probability of operating in a seaborne environment. Seaborne Defense Training, ZZ 133039. This instructor-led course consists of individual and team performance-based objectives that provide training and hands-on evaluation of seaborne defense material. This course prepares personnel to survive in a seaborne environment and mitigate the effects of a seaborne attack. Students will comply with course requirements outlined in Table 8.1. This course frequency requirement shall be every 18 months for all regular Air Force and 24 months for the ARC not listed in Attachment 2. This mandatory course will only be taught by 3E9X1s, and the instructor-to-student ratio shall not be more than 1:30. All 3E9X1s are exempt from this training requirement. Table 8.1 shows the student requirements for this course. Narrator's Note. Table 8.1 Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear Defense Training requirements will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 8.1. Individuals perform Air Force Specialty Code specific seaborne wartime skills while wearing individual protective equipment. Individuals shall train at an 18-month frequency requirement, 24 months for ARC, in line with seaborne defense training. Individuals who undergo a permanent change of station to overseas location must be current in seaborne defense training before departure and must remain current for the duration of the assignment, less than 18 months. After 18 months, 24 months for ARC, personnel will require refresher training. Chapter 9. Budgeting and Logistics. Paragraph 9.1. Air Force Emergency Management Equipment Budget. Table 9.1 lists the PECs for wartime seaborne defense and terrorist weapons of mass destruction response equipment for regular Air Force Reserve, and Air National Guard units and personnel. For medical response equipment, supplies, and services, PEC 28036F will be used by the medical treatment facility or home station. See AFI 41-106 for guidance on both home station and deployed equipment. Narrator's note, Table 9.1, Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear and Weapons of Mass Destruction Program element codes will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 9.1. The Installation Comptroller will ensure PEC integrity by dispersing funds for Emergency Management Working Group approved CBRN and WMD response equipment requirements. Units must budget to repair and replace CBRN and WMD response equipment and consumables based on service life expiration and condition. Paragraph 9.2. Allowance Standards. The Table 9.2 lists the primary allowance standards, AS, for equipment items authorized to support the Air Force Emergency Management Program. Narrator's note, Table 9.2, Allowance Standards for Emergency Management Supplies and Equipment will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 9.2. R&EM flights will refer to allowance standard and the emergency management UTC equipment and supply lists for home station and deployed equipment authorizations. The R&EM flight will use the current program of record, Automated Readiness Information System, for tracking equipment accountability, maintenance, condition code, serviceability, periodic inspections, and calibration. Specialized protective equipment may be required for the emergency management missions of teams such as shelter management, unit control center, mobility, and support teams. Use the allowance standard or functional area guidance for these requirements. Air Force installations must have mobile communications capabilities to support incident response command and control and be used as the incident command post. Level 1, the minimum standard capability would be through assigned first responder, medical, security forces, and fire and emergency services vehicles with assigned tactical communications equipment. Submit additional capability, if required, or a unique requirement through the AFIMSC detachment to the MAGCOM and AFIMSC for approval. A&G personnel submit requests through NGB A4XD. Paragraph 9.3. Unit Emergency Response Equipment. Unit commanders must identify requirements and budget for obtain, store, and maintain material needed to accomplish their specific functional response tasks in support of response plans. Examples include Air Force specialty equipment, specialized steam equipment, and equipment supporting unit shelter in place, post-tech and incident reconnaissance, and CCA teams. Unit equipment does not include protective masks and assets maintained by the LRS, or equivalent for sea-time CBAG requirements in Table 9.3. Unit commanders must ensure unit material, including that in bulk storage, is properly maintained and inventoried. Units will conduct inventories and inspections annually and/or after deployment or exercises, comparing the on-hand assets to the ESLs, and the result will be updated in Automated Readiness Information System to align with AFI 10-210. Units must identify and mark training equipment in accordance with technical orders. Do not store training equipment with operational equipment. Paragraph 9.4. Chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear incident response equipment. The 4F9W series UTCs provide 3E9X1s the equipment to execute their peacetime and wartime CBRN response mission, and may be used to support the fire and emergency services or a typical non-medical CBRN or hazmat incident. The 4F9WM UTC is designed for home station emergency management response. The 4F9WM UTC is not designed or intended for deployment support. Units shall not palletize or task the 4F9WM UTC to deploy for inspections or exercises. Medical UTCs and the Home Station Medical Response Program provide capability needed for local CBRN response. Home Station Medical Response Equipment Guidance and Accountability Procedures are found in AFI 41-106 and AFMAN 41-209, Medical Logistic Support. War Reserve material may be used to support domestic incidents, but approval will be obtained from the War Reserve Material Releasing Authority in accordance with AFI 25-101, War Reserve Material. When War Reserve material is used to support domestic incidents, notify the approving authority as soon as possible. Paragraph 9.5. Ground Crew Chemical Warfare Defense Equipment. LRS will stock, store, and issue operational and training equipment to installation or unit personnel at home stations and when deployed in accordance with AFI 23-101, Air Force Material Management, AFI 10-403, Deployment Planning and Execution, Technical Orders, and Guidance in this publication. Table 9.3 lists the basis of issue for each authorized asset, including the protective mask and the CBAG that units will adhere to. Narrator's Note, Table 9.3, Chemical Warfare Defense Ensemble, CBAG Operational and Training Asset Basis of Issue will not be narrated. Please reference the physical document for Table 9.3. With MAJCOM A4R approval, LRS will issue assets with expired shelf life for training as identified in Table 9.3. Individuals are responsible for cleaning, maintenance, and accountability of the issued assets. Members will use the same operational protective mask for training and real-world operation. Members will inspect and clean gear to comply with applicable technical orders prior to turn-in. MAJCOM A4 staffs, in coordination with MAJCOM Judge Advocate staffs, will review host-tenant support agreements to determine if valid requirements exist to issue CBRN individual protective equipment to foreign nationals working on Air Force installations at foreign, non-domestic locations. If valid requirements exist, MAJCOM A4 staffs will direct their installations LRS to determine and stock appropriate quantities of individual protective equipment. MAJCOM A4 staffs will also direct their installations to issue required individual protective equipment. Other considerations include the capability to provide individual protective equipment as required for enemy prisoners of war, retained personnel, civilian internees, and others detained in Air Force custody. Air Mobility Command will consider Civil Reserve Air Fleet and airlift contractor requirements. LRS will provide CBRN individual protective equipment to each DoD contractor identified as emergency essential in their contract and located in or deploying to CBRN high-risk areas. See DoD Instruction 1100.22, Policy and Procedures for Determining Workforce Mix. Individuals declared hard to fit by the bioenvironmental engineering flight during quantitative fit testing will be issued an M45 or other DoD mask and spare parts for deployment. The LRS will determine CBAG authorizations and update enterprise solution supply by 1 December of each year. Follow guidance in AFI 10-403, Chapter 2, and AFI 23-101 for installations in potentially high CBRN threat in contested environments. Authorizations will include military-based populace, emergency essential civilians and contractors, command-sponsored military dependents, and host nation personnel identified for Air Force support in host nation agreements. Installations will procure and maintain CBAGs and training equipment as listed in Table 11.3. Installations will procure and maintain Aircrew CBRN Defense Ensemble, DBAG, basis of issue, and training equipment defined in AFI 11-301 V1, Aircrew Flight Equipment AFE Program. CBAGs may be pre-positioned for central issue to personnel for Air and Space Expeditionary Force deployments to CBRN high-risk areas. CBAG guidance for these personnel will be included within Area of Responsibility reporting instructions. Air components and major commands will determine if personnel assigned temporary duty to a CBRN high-risk area during peacetime will be required to bring a complete operational CBAG and related field gear, including helmet and body armor. Personnel participating in CBRN high-risk area operational readiness exercises or inspections will bring training individual protective equipment, components, and protective mask. Threat tables designated CBRN medium threat areas and high-risk areas are no longer to be included in this publication. MAJCOMs will use Combatant Command J2 developed intelligence estimates to determine which installations should be considered CBRN high-risk areas. As required, MAJCOMs will transmit updates to the list of high-risk areas to the Air Force Civil Engineer Directorate Readiness Division, AF, A4, CX, for review by the Air Force Counter-Weapons of Mass Destruction Council. Once vetted by the Council, Air Force Installation Mission Support Center and AF, A4, CX will use the current CBRN high-risk area to list to support budgeting estimates, operational planning, and requirements development. Paragraph 9.6. Chemical Warfare Defense Equipment Reuse. Despite the increase in CBAG asset bases of issue for CBRN high-risk areas, it is not logistically feasible to have enough chemical warfare defense equipment assets on hand to automatically discard Joint Service Lightweight Integrated Suit Technology, JSLIST, ensembles that are only exposed to vapor contamination from chemical warfare agents. Accordingly, units will plan to reuse JSILST ensemble for up to 15 days, which have been exposed to chemical warfare agent vapor contamination. Contamination control and reduction procedures, e.g., processed through a CCA, will be determined as airmen conduct verification or observe suspicion of liquid or solid contamination. Example being changes in color of M8 and M9 detector paper, signs and symptoms of agent exposure, etc. JSLIST ensemble components, individual protective equipment, and M50 protective mask must be replaced if contaminated with chemical warfare agents in liquid or solid form. Paragraph 9.7. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment is equipment worn to minimize exposure to serious workplace injuries and illness. Chemical warfare defense equipment and CBRN individual protective equipment is a subset of personal protective equipment specifically designed for a traditional CBRN wartime environment. The installation bioenvironmental engineer determines the appropriate level of personal protective equipment and individual protective equipment. Individual protective equipment is not typically approved or used for peacetime hazmat response. Paragraph 9.8. Funding and reporting. The Air Force Installation Mission Support Center Protection Services Division, AFIMSC, IZP, will centrally manage funding for the non-medical components of CBAG and DBAG using PECs 27593F, 55165F, and 55175F. AFCEC, CXR, NGB, and AFRC Civil Engineer Readiness Divisions will coordinate funding with MAJCOM A4RS and MAJCOM A3T. AF, A3, and AF, A4 will provide chemical warfare defense equipment requirements to AFCEC, CXR annually no later than the 1st of October. All assigned, attached, and tenant regular Air Force units report their CBAG and funding requirements to their assigned bases. Units will report requirements to the host MAJCOM, not the owning MAJCOM. Joint bases will report their requirements through their respective components. For example, Air Force units supported by the Army will report their mobility bag requirements to their MAJCOM A4 and not through the Army. Funding for Air Force requirements that support mission or wartime requirements will come from the AFIMSC. Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve commanders will fund for their forces C and D bags, CBRN and Emergency Management UTC equipment, and CBRN Defense Course support equipment and materials. Secretary Air Force Report on CWMDs. When tasked by Air Force A10, Air Force A4CX will provide any requested data in civil engineer equity areas to formulate the Air Force's capability to respond to WMD incidents. Chemical and Biological Defense Report to Congress. In accordance with 50 U.S.C. 1522, Conduct of the Chemical and Biological Defense Program, DoD provides an annual report to Congress on overall armed forces readiness and ability to fight in a chemical or biological environment. AF-A4CX will provide CBRN defense training and significant Air Force CBRN defense capability improvements data to AF-A10 for inclusion in the Air Force response no later than 15 April annually. AFCEC CXR will provide CBRN defense training data to AF-A4CX no later than the 1st of April annually. Chemical and Biological Defense Program Risk Assessment Annual Report. This annual data call captures cross-functional priorities and risk in the CBRN defense program. The report is used to build a baseline strategy for research advocacy at the Secretary of Defense level. AF-A4CX will consolidate inputs from each functional area and formalize report no later than the 1st of October annually. AFCEC-CXR will provide the following data no later than the 1st of September annually. The current civil engineer CBurn capability, the current civil engineer CBurn sufficiency, the current civil engineer CBurn planning and requirements, and the current projected obsolescence and gaps. This concludes the narration of AFI 10-2501, dated 10 March 2020. For the attachments, glossary, terms, and acronym list, please reference the physical document. This has been a Defense Documents Narrated narration. Thank you.